Every time I look at you, something is on my mind. If you do what I want you to, oh baby, we'd be so fun. Life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Shaboom, shaboom. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-da. Shaboom, shaboom. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-da. Shaboom, shaboom. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-da. Shaboom. Oh, shaboom, shaboom. Ya-da-da-da-da. Shaboom, shaboom. Yada shaboom shaboom. Yada shaboom. Oh, you know that every time I look at you, something is on my mind, on my mind. If you do what I want you to, baby, we'd be so fun. Life could be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Nani ding dong, a ling a ling a lay, shaboom bado, badoom badoo balay. Oh, life could be a dream, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Shaboom shaboom, sweetheart. Shaboom shaboom, sweetheart. Shaboom, shaboom, sweetheart. Ba-ba-ba-ba-boom. Shaboom. All my life, some stones, some for some gone, and some green. These places have their moments with lovers and friends. I still can recall some are dead and some are living in my there is no one compares with you. When I feel at something new, though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them in my life. For people and things that went before, I know I'll often stop and think about them in my Jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. The jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Oh, I'm on my way. I'm on the village, the peaceful village, the lion sleeps tonight. In the village, the peaceful village, the lion sleeps tonight. My darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight. Hush, my darling, don't fear, my darling, the lion sleeps tonight. I'm on my way. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Thank you so much. Now, if you can and are able, please stand and join us in the singing of our national anthem. Work so proud of the me. Stars in bright stars through the heavens we down. We're so gathered, we screaming, and the mountains sing. Get through that our flag still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet? Had to hold it back a little bit.
Gosh, yeah. Have you have your board come on up?
Get the board up.
Yeah. Okay, we got him. Got him? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a big round of applause for the Middle School Glee Club and the vocal cords. That's a lovely start to our meeting. Once again, welcome. My name is Chuck Worcester. I'm your elected moderator for the town and school district meeting, which is where we are today. This is the third of the 4 meetings in our annual town meeting cycle. After today, we just have all day voting, which will be right here in this room on Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Quick note here at the beginning, if for some reason you want Wi-Fi or need Wi-Fi while you're here, you'll see that there's a school district guest Wi-Fi available. And if you're so inclined, the number that you want is 760594. I don't see anybody jotting it down too carefully, but we do have it up here if you need it later. It's 760594. Many people have contributed to making these events possible today. And as we get started, I want to make sure we have a chance to thank a few people in particular who've been working behind the scenes. The first is the staff here at the high school, the custodial staff in particular that have prepared this room for us. Also, Lisa O'Neill, our town clerk, who's here. Paula Nolte is maybe here. Our town director of human resources, John Haverstock, the town manager, is here. Katie Sutton, our interim school superintendent, is here as well. John DeGrange has been helping us with the sound system, and of course, all the crew at Junction Arts and Media. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, John. This meeting is available for people to watch on Zoom and YouTube, although we don't take questions remotely. For a town meeting, you have to be here on the floor. And finally, I want to thank everyone who's here for being part of this. We have the honor and the privilege to live in a town and state and country devoted to free exercise of self-government, and we honor that privilege by participating. And here we are. Okay, today's meeting is going to have 2 parts. There's the town part and the school part. We alternate those each year, and this year we're going to start with the town business. In the back of the room, there's a box with these books. These books have the agendas for today's meeting. So there's blue pages at the start. There's a blue page for today, and there's a blue page for Tuesday. So you have to kind of keep track in your mind of which one we're looking at. But the agendas for today's meeting are here if you want to follow along. They're relatively short. Today's meetings will include a few official votes, and because of that, I'll be using Robert's Rules of Order to conduct the votes. The nice thing about Robert's Rules is that they create a fair and predictable framework for conducting meetings. The trouble is that not everybody understands how they work. I brought Robert's Rules. The good news is nobody, including me, has any idea what most of this is in the book. So I'm just going to go over a couple of quick items of things we want to know for today. The first is that we work from this agenda and only this agenda. So we'll be rolling through it, but if people have questions about something else, we won't get to that in town meeting. And the idea there is to make sure that if people have chosen not to be here, they won't discover to their surprise that we decided to eliminate kindergarten or the fire department or something. So that's why we stick to the agenda as printed. The second thing that's a little bit unusual is that we start each item with the motion to talk about the item. Usually in an informal meeting, you don't do that. You start talking about the school budget or something, and then you vote at the end. In formal Robert's Rules, we start with the motion. So I'll ask either the select board or the school board to make the motion to bring the question to the floor. And then once we're talking about something, we can talk about it until one of two things happens. Either I look around and don't see anybody that has any questions, in which case I'll call for the vote. It's also possible if one of you has heard enough that you could also call for the vote. And so what you do is you approach the microphone and say that you call the question, so to speak. And then I ask, does 2/3 of the room want to proceed to the vote? And if so, then we'll do it. So usually the agenda is relatively short. Usually the questions run out and I just go ahead and call the vote. But remember, you do have the opportunity, if you've heard enough and you remember that you left the stove on at home or something, that you can call for the vote. Okay. A couple of additional ground rules today. If you want to ask a question or address the meeting at the appropriate time, we ask that you do so with one of the 3 microphones we have here. That's both so that everybody in the room can hear, but also the people who might be watching at home can also hear. We ask that you do that. When you do approach the microphone, please tell us your name and where you live. Only registered voters of the town are permitted to speak and vote during our town meeting here. So it's important that we know where you live. And I confess I was a little bit lax about this on Monday, so I'm going to try harder to make sure that we stick to it this time around. The one thing I would ask is it's common during the presentations of our budgets and things that town and school employees who have knowledge about this, it's great to be able to hear from them. So I would ask, unless there's any objection, that we allow town and school employees that have relevant information to the motion on the floor to be able to speak. Does anybody have any objection to that? And once again, yeah, that'd be great. We'll do that. Okay, fantastic. We're getting there. And then finally, depending on the number of questions we have on each topic, I'll give everybody a chance to ask one question who I can see lined up at their microphone. So if you do have a question, please do come up. And then if we've had a chance to get to everybody and there's still time and interest, we can have additional questions from people. But the goal really of today is to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask any questions and also to hear from our board. So, okay, the final item is we have a number of wonderful candidates running for school board and select board this year. We had a budget and candidates night last Monday. We also had a great session at the Bugby Center on Thursday. You can watch those online between now and Tuesday if you so desire. But we won't be talking about candidates today as part of state statute. The candidates are facing the voters on Tuesday, so to speak, so they don't have to face us today. So again, you can watch online through the town's website or through the Junction Arts and Media website. You can follow those links. Okay, given that, I will then call the 2025 town meeting to order. Okay. The first item on our warning for today for the town part of the meeting is to receive the reports of the town officers. Is there a motion from the select board? Okay, moved by Mike. Is there a second? Okay, great. Second by Kim. So we have a motion on the floor to receive the reports of the town officers. So these are the reports of the town officers right here. So this is a great time to ask any questions you might have about things that are in this book. And we're going to start off with a couple of presentations from town staff about things that are going to be on Tuesday's voting that are not part of the budget. Since we talked about the budget on Monday, we have a couple of other things. If you wonder what those things are, you can just turn the page and we have several pages. In particular, there's some items about local option taxes that we're going to hear some presentations from. So I think we're at that point now. Yeah, Scott, you want to take it away?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Hear me? There we go. Okay. Good morning. My name is Scott Hausler. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for the town of Hartford. I get the pleasure to start off the discussion on the current local options tax for equipment. In some other items, you'll be hearing from myself. You'll also hear from the police department and DPW in this particular presentation. The local options tax, through our budgetary process with the town manager and the finance director, we often come together and talk about items within the budget to put in the budget, and then items that might be worthy of using the current local options tax. So that's what occurred in this particular presentation. We had items in equipment items that are on revolving replacement. In our amortization schedule, the equipment that I'm going to be talking about are past due. And so we requested use of existing local options tax funding for these purchases. And I'm going to talk about Parks and Recreation and our requests. But first, want everybody to recognize that we're talking about the existing local options tax that is in place. So it's in the town charter, which authorizes the town to levy a tax on 1% on rooms and meals and alcoholic beverage sales within the community. So that creates the revenue, for potential local options tax purchases. And it's our requirement to present this to you folks at town meeting in order for you to give the opportunity to vote on whether or not to use these funds for this purpose. Quick here. On the ballot, you're going to see these particular items in this part of the presentation. And it'll identify, shall the town authorize the expenditure of $442,000 of local option tax revenue. Again, this is already revenue that's in place and in hand and in the bank from rooms and meals and alcohol sales for the purchase of several vehicles as follows. And I'm going to talk about the Parks and Recreation items, and then DPW and the police department will come up and talk about theirs. We're looking on the ballot, it'll identify the Parks and Recreation Department. We're looking to replace a 4-wheel drive heavy duty pickup truck and a utility flatbed liftgate to replace an existing 2011 pickup truck. Also, B will be a park grounds utility vehicle, Gator they call them, with electric cargo dump to replace an existing 2014 vehicle for a total expenditure for Parks and Recreation out of local options tax of $87,000. So just describe that equipment. We'll go to the next page. This is just gives you an idea of this is the particular truck that we are replacing. It's actually a 2-wheel drive. We're looking to get a 4-wheel drive. It's the current 2011 2-wheel drive pickup with liftgate. It's got quite a bit of rust, severe rust, questionable of being approved with inspection. Bed cross members are rusting, rocker panels. So you could see the condition of the existing vehicle. And again, we're looking to replace it with a 4-wheel drive truck. I'll show you that here in a minute. So we're looking at a FY26. If we can find a 25, we'll certainly do that with attachments. With the expenditure of $60,000, this kind of gives you an idea of what that might look like. Sorry about that. Get a little better picture. Looking for, again, a new 25 or 26 4-wheel drive, 3/4 ton truck, flatbed. We're looking for some aluminum toolbox for park equipment, lift gate, that sort of thing, and a push plow for assembly for plowing. Here is the replacement John Deere. It's a 2014 John Deere Gator. Currently has some engine issues. One challenging thing with equipment is, you use it for 6, 8, 10 months and then it sits for a long time. It's generally not the best thing for equipment. It likes to run all the time. But we do have some transmission engagement issues with the clutch. The dump body doesn't work. It has to be manually assisted at times. And it's just a tired vehicle. So it's in our equipment replacement program, and it's past due its replacement. This is what we're looking to purchase. Similar type of vehicle with a dump body, a 4-wheel drive unit, carries a load of materials and that sort of thing. When we're maintaining the Maxfield Sports Complex, this is where the utility vehicle is used the majority of the time. It'll have turf tires, so we can utilize it throughout the complex and not just on pathways and roads, that sort of thing. And it'll have towing capacity or towing and cargo capacity, so we can move mulch and material and that sort of thing from various fields from our stockpile and that sort of thing. So these are the equipment the Parks and Recreation Department's looking to replace, and I'm going to turn it over to the Public Works Department for him to come up. And you want me to run this for you? Okay. All right.
Guess I should be able to speak from here. Hi, Brian Gazdo. I'm the Director of Public Works. The two vehicles we're looking to replace, one is a 6-wheel dump truck, H8. As you take a look at, if you could go to the next slide. Put it up a little higher.
Stand so that he's talking in front of it instead of the side.
There you go. Thank you, John. Thank you. So H8 is one of our primary plow trucks and dump trucks. It's a 2017, but it's been a vehicle that's had quite a bit of repairs. As you can see, we have over $52,000 in repairs to it. It was actually in the schedule to be replaced this year, but we had a couple of other smaller trucks that we actually even had more issues with that we decided to replace them this year. So this vehicle was actually supposed to be replaced this year. So now we're asking for it to be replaced next year. And as you can see, just from the road salt, hauling stone, hauling gravel, even though you may not think it has a lot of years on it, these vehicles do get a lot of abuse over the years. They're heavy duty trucks. And with the 2023 storm event, we got a lot of use out of them. We hauled a lot of material in 2023. So that's the one we're looking for on that one. The next vehicle we're asking for, well, if you go through, that's what we're looking to replace it with. I'm sorry. So that's what we're looking to replace it with, approximately $210,000. It will have a front plow and a wing plow, and then a dump body with it. And we're looking to get either probably a 26 or newer for that. So the next one is an F-250 at 2011. This is the vehicle we basically call the mechanic's truck. It has a diesel, we have to go out and remotely fuel graders, loaders and stuff like that. So it has a fuel tank on it. But what you say, this truck is, once again, it's outlived its useful life. We've recently taken on a very good equipment mechanic, and the goal is that we're going to equip this vehicle so that he can actually go out and do more vehicle repairs out in the field. And so we could try to minimize towing. If we can fix something out in the field, this truck's going to be equipped so that he would have the capability of doing that. I just want to maybe go back one, Scott. And that's the type of vehicle we would be looking at. It would have a plow on it. These vehicles, he would be out plowing. And as like Scott's vehicle would have utility bodies on it to hold equipment. So that's the two vehicles we're asking for the Public Works Department.
Morning. Can you all hear me? My name's Tom Howell. I'm one of the lieutenants at the police department. I am a resident of Lebanon, New Hampshire, but I'm a born and raised Vermonter from the Northeast Kingdom. I'm just going to talk briefly today about what we're looking, our spending requests with lot funds. We currently have a 2022 police cruiser with, as of today, has 72,000 miles on it. Has 10,000 engine hours on it. Ford Motor Company tells us that 1,000 miles on the odometer is equivalent to over 6,000 miles of wear on a normal cruiser. The police cruisers are hard use items, a lot like that. DPW's vehicles are out 24/7 sometimes. This particular cruiser has been involved in a couple collisions. The preventative maintenance fees are what we've paid to date are going up, nearing $10,000. So we're looking to replace this cruiser to get into replace it with a brand new car for the patrol division, so that we don't have issues with cars going down. Just some photos. It doesn't really do it justice. You can see some of the damage to this particular car. They, like I mentioned, they are hard use. They're out in the salt, out in the weather, 24/7. They're not under covered parking. And they accelerate fast. They brake hard. They really get used. We'd be looking to use $75,000 of lot funding to replace the cruiser with the Chevy Tahoe that we've started to rotate into our fleet.
Okay, very good. A couple folks have wandered in since we started, so we're in the town portion of the meeting. We're on the first agenda item, which is to receive the reports of the town officers. Under that, we're hearing some presentations about some of the voting that we'll do on Tuesday. In particular, if you look at the town side, we're on page 5, and it's ballot item number 20. So if you want to look and see exactly what we're talking about. And then I think, do we want to hear? Yeah, great. We're going to move on to now number 21, which is also a local option tax item.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Cooney. I'm your fire chief. Another item listed on the ballot this year for usage of the local option tax is a fire department item, which was recommended to come out of the FY26 budget and be using to complete the purchase using local option tax funds this year, the same as the articles you just saw in the previous presentation. Again, as you saw in the previous presentation, this is utilizing funds that are already on hand collected through rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverage taxes throughout the year. This item on the ballot will read, shall the town authorize the expenditure of $58,000 of local option tax revenue already in hand from the rooms, meals, and alcohol taxes towards the purchase of vehicle rescue tools, commonly referred to as the Jaws of Life, for the Hartford Fire Department. We're replacing an existing gas and hydraulic hose system of rescue tools that are currently housed on the Hartford Fire Department's rescue vehicle. It's an older system. It has served the department for 16 years and was planned for replacement. It is outdated based on current technology, has limited mobility because you're tied to hoses to the power generator. And we have some replacement issues with the equipment as the hydraulic hoses are cracked and needing replacement as well. What we're proposing is using $58,000 worth of local option tax funds to buy the more current edition of battery operated vehicle rescue tools. The department currently owns another 2 sets of these as well, on an engine and an ambulance, both in the one for Quechee and one for the Wilder, Hartford, and White River Junction area. These are battery operated tools that would get a cutting device, a spreading device, and a powered ram for extricating individuals from motor vehicle accidents. The balance of all of these items for the commitments in both the fire department, the police department, public works, and parks and recreation total $503,449.05, of which those funds currently exist in an account in the local option tax account. That's all I have.
Great, thanks, Chief. I think we're about to move into other presentations, things on the ballot. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Yes.
Couple of small comments. First, actually, if you add the vehicles and the jaws of life together, they total $500,000. We do have 503,000 and change on account in the local option tax account, capital reserve. Secondly, for those who want to see the pictures that were shown here, maybe more easily seen, we had some handouts here on the table which contained all these PowerPoints, but those PowerPoints are also located on the town's website, along with the presentations about them that were made at Warrant Information Night. All that information is on the website. So thank you for that.
Great, thanks. And that's John Haverstock, our town manager. Yes, we have a question. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Becky Chalet, Town of Hartford. And this is just a quick question to the police lieutenant. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, but I'm just curious whether should we expect that most of our cruisers will need to be replaced every 4 years? Is that sort of standard with the use that they're getting these days? I'm not quibbling at all. I'm just curious if that's standard.
Wait. What's up? Wow. Gotta get really on this thing. All right. We try to replace a car every year to continually make sure our fleet we don't have cars go down. So we plan on it this year. If we don't get funding out of the lot funds, we'll take money out of the reserves to fund the cruiser. So every year we try to add a car to the fleet, specifically the patrol fleet, because we don't need those cars going down when we need them responding to calls. So.
Other questions? Yes, sir. Please approach the microphone.
Of course, it's muted and I'm over here. Give me 2 seconds, sir.
Okay. Ken Baldwin, Coeechee. My question is, how much of this equipment, I imagine the Jaws of Life isn't available locally. How much of the equipment that we're talking about purchasing is going to be purchased in the local area? Any idea?
Anybody want to? Yeah.
I'm reading lips here among the department heads, and it seems to be the case that when we have purchases of this size, we go out with a request for proposals. So we can't control who's got the lowest price and where they're located, but we do try to cast a wide net and get as many options as possible. And we do have a provision in our purchasing policy that suggests working with local vendors wherever possible.
Yes, next question.
Colin Butler from Wilder. I don't have any objection to the town spending the money proposed, $500,000 on the equipment that was described. I've got one small question on the equipment and then a larger question. For the police vehicle, I think we heard the police chief at a select board meeting talking about this same use of lot funds, saying that the car that's being replaced would be recycled as a command vehicle or something to that effect. And I think we just heard the lieutenant say that maintenance on that vehicle is approaching $10,000 a year. And I'm just wondering if we're going to save $10,000 a year by buying a new vehicle, but we're going to recycle that vehicle and continue to use it. We're still going to pay the $10,000 of maintenance, I presume. So that's not really a savings to the town. And I guess maybe a little clarification on that is needed. The larger question is, I presume that the town has a capital spending plan, and all of the equipment that was described certainly looks like it's at its end of useful life and should be incorporated in that capital spending plan. And I presume that much of that equipment was probably due to be purchased this year, whether there were lot funds or not available. If there was no lot money available, those expenditures would come through the normal general fund budget. That being the case, Should we understand that capital spending in the town will be down $500,000 this year? And our town budget is down $500,000 this year because we're using lot funds to replace spending money in the general budget? Thank you.
Great. So Colin slipped a couple questions in, but let's take the first one, which was the $10,000 maintenance on the vehicle.
So the maintenance, I believe, is 10, I think it was about 9,000 or approaching 10 over the life of that vehicle, not a year. Yep. So, and the other piece is we try as hard as possible to repurpose the vehicle. We're going to take a hard look at that vehicle with our public safety mechanic and say, is it viable to put it in a position where it's not run every day by patrol? So we have a 2014 car that we got from the fire department that's slated for the parking person that person will be using to do parking downtown. We may look at both those cars and say, what is the lesser evil to facilitate that?
And John, you want to speak about that larger capital
Sure.
plan?
As to the second question, yes, all of these proposed vehicle purchases through the local rooms, meals, and alcohol tax had been originally included in the general fund budget. But as we know, this was a challenging budget year, and the initial drafts of the budget, which reflected all the department heads' requests and scrutiny by me and the finance director, left us with a substantial increase that the property taxpayers would have dealt with. So we looked to be creative. We looked to find other sources of revenue beyond simply the property tax to address these basic needs. And of course, we realized that we have the rooms, meals, and alcohol tax, which is really earmarked to be deposited into a capital reserve account. And to my mind, Colin, there's nothing more capital than vehicles and life-saving equipment.
Question over here? Oh.
Mike from West Hartford. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Scott, you mentioned in your proposal here that you said, I don't know what the exact words were, equipment replacement program. I've never heard of that before. Can you explain what the program is? Well, you said that.
Go ahead and ask your question, Mike, and then we'll give Scott a chance to come to the microphone.
My question is, what is this equipment replacement program? I've never heard of it before.
Got it.
Thank you.
Great.
So I can speak for the fire department, but some departments have reserve accounts for the purpose of replacement of capital items. The fire department maintains a reserve account that funds basically three priorities. The first one is the replacement of the self-contained breathing apparatus that's on a 15-year cycle. The second is the personal protective equipment, the firefighters turnout gear ensemble that's replaced at 5-year intervals. And the third one is the larger fleet and apparatus replacement schedule. So within the budget, in the reserve accounts, you see a transfer at times to those reserve accounts from the general fund budget every year. And other departments maintain similar ones for different purposes, Parks and Rec, Police, and Public Works.
Great. Next question on this item.
Thank you. Eric Krause. I live in the town of Hartford. The question that I have is if we approve their proposal for the spending relative to the gator for Parks and Rec, one of the things that the director said was that the equipment sits idle for a portion of the year, and that's not good. And I agree with that. And it made me realize that maybe there's an alternative use for that equipment in the season that it's not being used at Maxfield, which is, could the town use those same funds to purchase a piece of equipment that's multi-use, for example, it plows sidewalks in the snow season and is used at Maxfield in the non-snow season, for example. And it's, I'm not objecting to the expenditure, just do we have the flexibility? Does the town have the flexibility to make that decision once the voters approve the funding? Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, Scott, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Eric, thanks for that question. And maybe I misspoke during the presentation, but this particular piece of equipment is being purchased for that very purpose. All the attachments will not be purchased this year, but the plan is to utilize it year round for snow, for example, up at the Wendell A. Barwood Arena, for example. Yes.
Other questions on these presentations at the moment? Okay, so we're still on the first item here of our agenda. What we've been hearing about is item number 20 that will be on the ballot on Tuesday. So as has been suggested here, the money for this has been collected and sits in an account. So if you vote yes on this item on Tuesday, the money will be allocated as indicated. If you vote no, the money will stay in the account and we'll have another crack at it next year. So those are kind of the implications of that item. Okay, I think we're going to hear now about item 21. No, I'm sorry, turning the page here. Item 22, the last item on Tuesday's ballot. I think Mike is going to speak to that. Is that?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, you got it.
I'm Mike Hoyt. If you don't know me, I'm chair of the Hartford Select Board. So as we go through all these ballot items, we pointed out there are basically three that deal with a local option tax. We just discussed the first two, which is taking existing money that we have in hand and using it for a particular purpose. Ballot item 22 would expand our current local sales tax from rooms, meals, alcoholic beverages to add a 1% to the sales tax, right? So I'm going to go through, we have a nice presentation here that explains to you what it is, what its practical effect might be on future budgets and things like that. So let's kick it off. So the local option sales tax overview. So one thing that happened recently in 2024 is the legislature passed a law that allowed municipalities to adopt local option taxes without town charter changes. So when we adopted the rooms, meals, alcoholic beverages, that was through a charter vote, a charter amendment, and it directed how those funds are to be used, namely that nothing gets spent until it's approved by the voters. The state has made it a little easier for towns to adopt local option taxes. I think they realize there that this is a tool a lot of towns are using to increase their municipal revenues. So you can basically, you don't have to change the charter, right? The select board voted to put it on as a ballot item, which is helpful. It makes it a little more easy. You know, usually when we change the charter, we have a charter committee and it's a process that's fairly lengthy. So this makes it a little bit easier for the town to put this before you. So in December, the select board recommended that we put this 1% local option sales tax on the ballot with the effort of diversifying revenue beyond the property taxes. Some of you saw me Monday night going through the budget presentation, and one of the takeaways I think I tried to give everyone from that is that there are budgetary pressures a lot of the time that are outside the board's control. Like we're not just spending recklessly or, you know, irresponsibly. There are costs that we have to bear, particularly employee healthcare costs that keep going up. 11% this year, 14% last year, right? We're in an inflationary time. Hopefully one day that will ease, right? But it's hard to keep the tax rate what I think is a reasonable amount of increase without additional revenue at our disposal. So we're putting this forward to you to see if you would agree to do that and sort of use the revenue that comes in from that to basically lower your tax rate. There is info on the town's website, so you can go check that out. So important dates, of course, the vote on Tuesday. We did the warrant information night on January 13th. I was not able to make that date, but Kim Souza chaired that meeting. That was at the town hall, and we sort of went through the nuts and bolts of what we're asking here. And then we had the town and school district meeting. Well, that's today. Here we are. So those are the important dates in this cycle. And we'll get into some frequently asked questions about the tax itself. So there is legislation enabling Vermont municipalities to adopt local option taxes the way that we're trying to do through ballot article and not a charter change. That's 24 V.S.A. Section 138, subsection B. And so this is something the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is strongly endorsed. And if you know anything about VLCT, they really are an advocate in Montpelier for the towns. So this was something that they supported to make it easier for towns to adopt local option taxes. So how does it work? The Vermont sales tax is 6%. And a 1% lot would make the total sales tax within Hartford 7%, right? So this would be a 1% increase in the sales tax. Vermont's rooms, meals, alcoholic beverages tax is, I believe, 9%. We adopted a 1% in Hartford. So now in Hartford, you pay 10% if you tax on rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages. So that's basically how it would work. One of the nice things is that the state administers the program and collects the taxes for us. And so what happens, though, of course, because the state takes this on, we don't get 100% of the sales tax proceeds. The state retains 30%, and basically we get 70% of it. There's another bill in Montpelier VLCT supports, which would increase the percentage that the town can receive. So hopefully that would pass, and instead of getting 70%, we get more, which would be very helpful. So what items are taxable? So the local option sales tax applies only to sales of items that are subject to the Vermont sales tax. We have some handouts which list the exceptions to the Vermont sales tax. So Vermont sales tax does not apply to food, clothing, medical supplies, over-the-counter medicines, and menstrual products, right? So a lot of the daily necessities of life, the cost drivers for most families are not impacted by that. There are those exceptions. And we do have those handouts at the front of the room, which can show you in more detail what is and what is not subject to the sales tax. Is the sales tax regressive? This is a question people always ask, and it's a good question whenever you're imposing a tax. Who does it hurt, right? And generally, most taxes have a greater impact on lower income and fixed income residents, right? Vermont's property tax would be regressive if it didn't have a tax credit, right? Things like that. This sales tax has those exceptions, right? They blunt the impact of it on the daily sort of necessities of life that people have to buy. So in this sense, it's a less regressive form of a sales tax than you could imagine if you actually got taxed for things like food and clothing. Vermont's had the sales tax since 1969, so it's nothing new. What we're basically asking is to add that 1% to it. And you may say, why do we want to add 1%? And I'll get into some of the reasons in a minute. One question that comes up a lot is, would recreational cannabis sales be taxed? I think one of the questions that came up and sort of sparked a discussion about the local option sales tax in general was the question when Hartford was deciding whether to allow, cannabis retailers in town. And one of those questions is, hey, do we get anything from it? Do we get any money? Currently, we do not. Cannabis is taxed under the general Vermont sales tax. So if we wanted to see any revenue from it, we could only really see it through an increase by putting in the local option sales tax. There's no option for us to tax cannabis sales exclusively, like we would alcohol sales, things like that. And so that's how a lot of interest in this got sparked. The driving force behind this is not to tax cannabis just on its own. The idea is to try to provide more revenue to help the tax rates and to make it easier to get through a tough time economically. Our online purchases, the tax is a destination-based tax. So when you buy an item through an online retailer and it gets shipped to your Hartford address, the item would be subject to the Hartford sales tax. So when I'm ordering books on Amazon or something like that, yes, I would have to pay the additional 1%, the penny on the dollar. Okay, so here's the reason why I think, what does this get us exactly in terms of revenue? Based on the recent history of sales in Hartford, conservative estimates we've got are around $1 million in revenue that would come in. And how would the government use the new revenue? That's a question we get a lot. You say, oh, we want this sales tax to reduce people's property tax rates. How do we know that it's not going to come in and the select board just decides to go on a spending spree? Well, the article itself, the way it's written, would prevent that. So basically, the ballot language directs that the tax revenue be used to offset municipal tax rates. So there it is. Shall the town assess a 1% tax on sales as allowed by Vermont law, with the proceeds of such sales being dedicated exclusively to offset town municipal tax rates? So there's a little built-in protection for people who are worried, the select board's going to go on some wild spending spree if it receives additional revenue. The math behind the lot. So in the period of July 1, 23 and June 30th, 2024, and this figure always kind of blows my mind, the state of Vermont collected $157 million in sales tax from Hartford. If you take the 1% of that, and then you do the further calculation that only 70% currently gets returned to the town, that's $1.1 million. And so the proposed general fund budget, as I mentioned, Monday night is a 4.71 spending increase, right? So that, as it is, if that's approved, the property tax bill for a $250,000 home rises by $151. If we had the local option sales tax and applied the $1 million to the budget, a homeowner would see two things, right? A slight decrease in their actual property taxes. It would go down $24. And then, of course, you wouldn't have to pay the $151 increase. That would be canceled out. So at the end of the day, it's roughly $175 in savings. Questions we always get, how many other towns have done this? Are we going to be like the only one out there? 32 Vermont municipalities, including Hartford, have adopted some local option tax. We have the rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages. And 26 towns, including Brattleboro, which is a border town, Woodstock, have adopted local option sales taxes. So we would join the 26 current municipalities that have a local option sales tax. Basically, why do we think we should do this? Why are we asking you to approve it? It allows municipalities to generate additional revenues that aren't tied to the property tax. It can also be collected from non-residents. When would it take effect? If approved, July 1. The state requires 90 days after passage to notify local businesses about the need to collect the tax, provide guidance to businesses when to charge the tax, and then supply various other tools and electronic filing requirements. So we'd be looking roughly at a July 1 start date. So that's the spiel. This is the second year in a row that this is on the ballot. It was narrowly defeated last year. I assure you, if it went down to defeat again, I don't think you'd see it for a while. I really think this is the time to do this. And I think looking at the budgets the last 2 years and the increases that really, are driven by things that, we don't have a lot of control over, makes this something that is beneficial to the town. Okay, any questions? Yep.
Hey, I'm Beth Mallow-Queechy. Just a clarification. When we were going through the vehicles, it was referred to as a local option tax revenue, and I'm trying to figure out how that relates to this. Is this an additional,
Yes, okay. So
yeah.
The first items you heard are the local option tax that we've already collected on rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages. And we collect roughly $350,000 a year in those. Under the terms of the charter, in order to expend those revenues, we have to get voter approval. So you see specific requests like we saw today for these types of equipment. This proposal, Article 22, would expand that tax from rooms, meals, alcoholic beverages to, we keep those, but it would also include a sales tax, which would be an additional 1% on the 6% Vermont tax that we pay on certain items.
So the local option tax that we heard about for the vehicles is coming from a sales tax, property tax?
The local option tax for the vehicles is coming from rooms, meals, alcoholic beverages, local option tax.
Okay, which is separate from the
Which is
1%.
separate, yeah.
Okay.
The state
Yes.
allows towns to do certain amount of local option tax. You don't have to take them all at once, right? So Hartford did sales. I'm sorry, Hartford did alcoholic beverages, rooms, and meals.
Got it.
And so that's what we're talking about. Those are funds already in hand. This would be a vote to expand the local option taxes that we charge to include a sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, sure, thanks.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mike Morris, Hartford. So the rooms and meals tax, local option tax that we collect will still stay separate and be voter controlled?
Yes, they would have, those items would have to be per the terms of the charter, be approved by the voters. The local option sales tax, if approved by its terms of how it's written, would say the money comes in, it's used for one purpose only, and that's to try and offset what we need to get from, the general fund revenue.
Okay, thank you, because I appreciate, I want to clarify that.
Yep.
A lot of people have asked me and I didn't know for sure. But I kind of find this counterproductive to some goals that we have had in town from several members and people about, we want to build our grand list, and we want people to come here and build. Building costs are going to go up because you buy materials. That's going to be taxed, the extra 1%. I used to own a business. On my propane heating bill, I had to pay sales tax, which now that's going to go up for all business owners. Their electric bill is going to go up because it's taxed, because it's a business, it's not residential. Did you take this all into consideration as far as bringing business into town? That's another cost for somebody to come here and build their house and to start or have a business.
Yeah, I think we took that into account, and I believe we heard from business owners as well. And I think the ultimate, sort of idea that prevailed was that this would be a good for the homeowners in town. And I don't think we heard anything that would suggest that it would keep businesses from moving here or setting up shop in Hartford.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, next question.
Becker, White River Junction. And I'm just wondering, in that we have all these car dealerships and we'll be paying, they'll be paying an extra 1%, and that New Hampshire is exempt from the Vermont sales tax. Will they be exempt from this local auctions tax?
So cars, I believe, they are taxed separately under the law. They have what's called a purchase and use tax, which is 6%. So it aligns with the Vermont sales tax, but it's considered a separate tax. So as far as I know, or been able to determine, the local option tax would not apply to the sale of automobiles. That's a separate category. But it could apply to auto parts, things like that.
That is collected by the state. That is collected by the state?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And so that's generally collected. It's different. They do it different for cars because they they don't call it the sales tax. They call it the purchase and use, and they make you pay it when you actually register your vehicle. So it's just sort of a separate process. But this local option sales tax would not apply to autos that are sold at our many auto dealerships in town.
Well,
Yes, next question.
Lynn Bohai, somewhere between the Wilder and White River border. As a former legislator, there are 3 buckets of taxes. There's a sales tax on goods. There's a rooms, meals, and alcohol tax. The sales tax is one rate, a separate rate. The purchase and use on cars is a separate rate. And the third one, I got lost where I was. Anyway, there are 3 different rates on 3 different categories. and they don't interfere with each other.
Thank you, Lynn.
Great, thanks, Lynn. Yes, next question.
Colin Butler, Wilder. I want to thank the select board for bringing this back to us to vote again. It's certainly worthy of consideration, but I have a problem with the way the proposal is worded. And frankly, I don't believe that collecting sales tax, which is going to hurt some people in town that are probably it's going to be hard for them to pay any additional sales tax. This is, think about car parts for an example. If we do collect that tax and it goes into our general fund, then it's not at all clear to me how the select board is going to use that tax to reduce our tax rate, as opposed to them simply understanding that there's going to be something like $1 million flowing in from the state for the collection of this additional sales tax. It's going to make it easier for them to put a budget together, knowing that the first $1 million is paid for by the sales tax. The budgeting process is going to remain virtually unchanged as far as I can determine. They're going to work to put a budget together with all the revenue in mind that they can collect. And I don't see this reducing the tax rate. I see it just cushioning the select board in the process of developing a budget, and they'll simply spend another $1 million knowing the $1 million isn't going to show up in the tax rate. So I don't believe that the wording of the issue being presented to us actually prevents the select board from spending additional money for the town, as opposed to reducing the tax rate. If we're going to do this, which I'm opposed to, if we're going to do this, I'd much prefer that the money be put into a reserve similar to the rooms and meals tax is now, and presented to the voters so that they can decide how that money is to be spent or put aside for future use. Thank you.
Kim wants
Kim?
to respond to
Uh, Working on it.
Oh, hey, hi. Hi there, Kim Souza, Vice Chair of the Select Board. I really appreciate that question, and because it has come up in other platforms as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the finance director or the town manager, my understanding is that those, if approved by the voters, the local option sales tax funds would be put into a reserve account throughout the process until the select board does the action to put it against the operating budget. Is that correct? Like it would go into
That particular language, as Colin points out, is not on the ballot article, but the ballot article, to my mind at least, is quite clear that it's only to be used to offset property taxes.
And then to address the other concerns around, wild spending of select board, I think that is where we all come in. I won't be on the board anymore, but I will be paying attention to the budget process, and it's a participatory democracy in which when the draft budget comes out, it's up to all of us to review it and to tune in or attend the meetings for the department head presentations and what is being suggested. Like everything happens in open public meeting, and there's no activity that's happening in secret that we're devising, like how we're going to spend more taxpayer dollars. So I guess my point is, for example, like with the unassigned fund, it's not an actual bank account, turns out, but we process all the requests and the needs of the town financially, and then we start looking deep and deep at every single line and every single presentation, and then we hone it down as best we can. Everyone can participate in that process. You may not have a specific vote on what goes to onto the ballot, but you do have a vote in the voting booth, and you do have a voice during the process. So I hope more and more people participate in that.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. I wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, great.
If I could. But Ida has a comment as well.
Yeah.
Available.
There you go.
Hi, everyone. Ida Griesemer, member of the Select Board. Closing out my first year, learned a lot about the budget process, as you can imagine. And one of the most important, we consider a lot of different numbers, and I really appreciate this question. One of the most important numbers that we thought about in this budget process is percent increase over the last year budget. And so I think as a Select Board, we focus on that piece a lot. And that really, when we think about the total number of what the budget request is, that's less emphasis is on that. And so we're not going to say, oh, another $1 million, great, let's spend more. We're going to think about what is the percent increase. And there are some things that are out of our control that make it challenging for our really competent staff to come up with a budget, because we have healthcare expenditures that are increasing out of our control. But our staff did an excellent job this year, and I know they will continue to really work with town manager and Select Board to say, we don't want to increase our budget past some percentage. This year, I think we looked at around 5%. And so I think that is one of the key ways and lenses that we approach it. And once we're sort of working with a percent that as a staff, town manager and Select Board, we feel comfortable presenting to the voters, then additional revenue is going to bring the number down in terms of the tax rate increase that we have to request from the voters.
I would just add, I think during the budget process, there's always an awareness that we have revenue that comes from other sources than the property tax. When we're crafting it, we always know that there's going to be some amount of local option tax that we can try and use, and unassigned funds that we can try and use as well. So I don't think the fact that, this goes to reduce your property tax rates means it necessarily results in the Select Board spending more money just because of that. And we know it's a cost, we are aware of that. I just think that the benefit is more. Like, the way I look at it is I pay a little more here and I save more there on my property tax. The amount I'd save on my property tax, an additional 1%, it would take thousands of dollars to cancel it out. So those are my thoughts on that.
Sorry.
Hello?
We have one more Select Board comment here, then, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Lanny Collins. So the line between necessary spending and discretionary spending sometimes is extremely thin. And there's a give and take when you come onto the Select Board, in terms of you have to spend the necessary spending to keep our town going. There's certain things that you just can't cut in order to keep the town functioning. Discretionary items are items that, as you well know, things that we put off for a long time, we need to get back. My hopes is, and I'm not a supporter of the 1% local option tax, but my hope is that future boards will take these things that we've been neglecting and chop away at them slowly year after year and use that money to that. And then when they get enough built up, they can, decrease the taxes. But you have to have faith in your future boards. And after next Tuesday, who knows if I'm going to be here or not, but have to have faith in the future boards that they will use the funds for a necessary spending and discretionary small amounts to chop away at those things that have been neglected for a long time. That's all I can say on that. Thank you.
Okay, great. I want to get to another question here. Yes.
Hi, Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. I missed my moment Monday night and was reminded that I hadn't brought my water bottle. I buy water through paying my water bill, and our town manager graciously emailed me the next day and said, I was so ready for you. The reason I'm even bringing this up is in the intermediate future, there may be a bond article, not this year or not this March, but towards wilder water infrastructure. And to Lanny's point, there are things you put off. And it's like the old muffler commercial, you pay me now, pay me later. So I wanted to just keep funding sources in our thinking, not just for the near future, but down the road. I have to admit I'm of two minds on the local option tax. One of the benefits that we have in our town manager is experience with grant writing. I am, and he knows this, looking forward to hearing his efforts on grant writing for water infrastructure to help ameliorate the impact on our taxes, okay? So it becomes of a piece at the end of the day, you pay your taxes, right? They're not gonna go away. I would like to think that if this were to go through, monies for something so fundamental would take priority over other things that could logistically wait. So, cheers.
Thank you, Marcy. Yes, next question.
Good morning. Heidi Duto, White River Junction, Vermont. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Good to see everyone. I attend quite a few town meetings, whether it be school, whether it be select board, planning, zoning. I've gone to H. Corey. I've gone to a lot of meetings. And whether I can go in person or I'm on Zoom for the select board meetings, I have been attending the majority since 2020. And it's rather disheartening to me that this local option sales tax was on the ballot last year. It was not voted through by the voters. It's being proposed yet again. It was never brought up throughout the entire year until December at a select board meeting. I didn't hear it, Kim. Sorry. I'd like to know why we didn't have open session meetings for the input and the questions of the residents prior to December. If you could possibly answer that for me.
I'd have to go back and look at when we first started talking about bringing the local option tax back up, but certainly we discussed that in meetings. People were there. We held an entirely separate meeting, January 13th, devoted entirely to the topic. You know, January to March voting day is what, 6-7 weeks, you know? It seems like, you know, plenty of time for people to to ask us questions about it and for us to try and provide materials, which we have, go to our website about what the tax means and what it would do. You know, I know it was on the ballot last year and it's on the ballot again because I think it's an idea whose time has come. If it's voted down again, we get the point, you know, that's 2 times. But you know, I really think it's important to the future growth of Hartford and to the property tax rate and the ability of people to stay here and not get overwhelmed by property taxes to have this additional source of revenue. You'll see me on voting day with the sign, vote for property tax relief. I'll be out there all day. I believe it that strongly. I believe in a few years, if we adopt it, we'll look back and say we should have done this years ago.
John, you want to speak to Heidi's question?
Just a brief point about timing. I mean, to me, it only makes sense that in the middle of the budget process, that's when the topic might come up because so many look to the possibility of a sales tax as a possible way to keep property taxes low. So the timing to me seems natural.
May I speak again?
A follow-up?
Yes, I would, please. Thank you, Chuck. So throughout the year, we've had many non-Hartford related business meetings in select board meetings. Not directly as far as how do we handle the town business, yet that was prioritized over a listening session like at the Wilder Club and Library where we spoke upon transparency and accountability. I just feel as if we are not focusing on town business. We're focusing on the personal and agendas of some within the board that feel as if we should bring this information to the people, but it's not business
of the town. And I think we need to really start focusing on town business and how we work to better our town, how we keep our town running. That's my personal opinion. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
I would just say the local option tax particularly is the town business. It's entirely intrinsically wound up with it because it's tax and it's budgets.
So Chuck, if I may.
Last crack out of here, Heidi. I want to keep going.
I'm not saying that this tax proposal is not town business, but you missed the point that it should have been discussed after it failed the budget. I mean, the voting last year, but yet we spent time on out of the country matters and matters that are out of our control, such as last week's meeting. It was supposed to be a listening session, yet it became a major discussion, which took almost an hour. It's out of our control until we get the answers from the legal and the state, and we work together to support our police department. I'm not saying that what is happening in Hartford and in the country or in Vermont are not important, but
Yeah.
I just think we need to
Thanks,
focus
Heidi.
on the town,
Good.
whether that be the sales tax, and discuss it. We have a couple informational meetings. People have
Great.
the opportunity to come out, but yet we hear it in December.
I think, yeah, thanks, Heidi. I think the group has had a good chance to hear, so I appreciate that. Yes, next question.
Hi, Ashley Andrews, Hartford Village. Excuse me. I guess back to the question of the way that the ballot item is written and the way that the funds are applied. Is it possible within the Vermont state legislation to make it so that this new lot funding is spent by voter discretion on the ballot? I know now it's probably too late to change that, but
I mean, it is possible, and that's how the rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages tax was structured. The way this ballot article is written, it would direct the funds specifically to the purpose of offsetting the tax rate without having to put, discrete items before the voters like we do with the other ones. I mean, it could have been phrased that way, but we thought it was important to let people know that this money's going to that purpose solely. Part to counteract like the fear that, we get an extra $1 million and we're going to go on some drunken spending spree.
right. Thanks, Mike. Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Is it related?
Yes,
Okay.
100%. So then if it were not to pass in this election on Tuesday, would the current board consider, I know we just talked about like not wanting to put it on a third time, but would we consider putting it on in next election written like the current rooms, boards, and meals option tax allocation?
I mean, I think that's speculative to the sense there will be a new board next year with new leadership. If it's gone down twice, I think people have expressed that for the time being, they're not interested. A few years down the road and the property taxes keep going up to the point they really are untenable for most people, then, a board might put it back on and maybe it'll be different. But, look, we're not going to, flog a dead horse here.
Yeah, I'll just state lastly then that I am in support of it. And I think that part of the issue both times is that people have struggled to understand it. So I don't think it's terrible to keep at it. Thanks.
Yeah, Kim.
Just to add to that, I often cite the example of Brattleboro, which now has a local option sales tax, and it did take them 3 tries, and it was the third time they put it on a ballot, which is when they specified to use it to offset the tax burden, and that was when it ultimately passed. So I think my perspective was to look at their example and say, okay, let's try it this way and see if it has broader appeal.
Yes, next question.
Becky Chalet, Town of Hartford, and I have it's a 2-part question. So I don't know if I'm allowed, but I'm hoping I can just ask a clarifying question and then get to my real question. So my clarifying question is because I'm not really good at taxes and finances and stuff like that, but I just want to I should understand this, that sales tax is, because it's destination based, whether we, as the town of Hartford, as whether I buy it here in town, or I scooch across the river to try and buy it sales tax free, but then I'm supposed to own up to that and pay for it on my taxes, state taxes at the end of or in April. Or if I order it online, the vendor is supposed to charge the Vermont state sales tax. So regardless, if we add a 1% to local options tax to the sales tax here in Hartford, all Hartford residents will pay an additional tax on everything that's taxable that apply. So regardless of where they buy it, we are all residents will have to pay this tax on everything we purchase that is taxable.
So
That is correct.
well, I mean, it's destination based. Like if you order something online and it's delivered to your house, you would pay it there. You know, and if you
Report your sales and use at the end.
well, you're supposed to. I mean, everyone knows.
Mike, I'm going to save you right here from getting into further trouble. The answer is yes.
Okay.
Let's get to your next question.
That was my clarifying question. So if that is the case, I could see that an awful lot of the potential revenue of sales tax in Hartford, and therefore this 1% lot tax, would actually come from Hartford residents and Hartford business owners, because I also am a business owner in the town of Hartford. So all of my supplies that I buy, I have to pay a sales tax on. So it seems like a huge portion of it would actually come from our pockets anyway. So my question for you guys on your presentation is somewhere in one of those slides, Mike, you said there's approximately, I'm not going to get this right, $157,000 in sales tax. Million, whatever. Sorry, whatever it was. So that's the approximate amount of sales tax that's currently collected at 6% for the town of Hartford. So my question for you guys is there any data to show what ballpark proportion of that is actually coming from out of towners as opposed to Hartford residents? Because otherwise, if it's mostly from us, it's basically just, to me, it seems like shuffling the coconuts around. And okay, so I'm going to pay for it on sales tax and get slightly less on property tax. So I'm trying to understand how much of this are we really going to get from out of towners as opposed to ourselves?
I don't know that we have any figures on the number of out of towners who this tax would be collected from. I don't we get like the raw sales tax data, you know. I don't think it, you know, I go buy something in Hartford, they don't know if live in New Hampshire or where I live. So that, you know, that's one thing. I also think the savings of $175 on a $250,000 home are not just a little bit.
Aida, do you have some?
Well, I just wanted to, just related to the point Becky was making, thank you for that point, is that just to underscore that some of this, one potential benefit is that folks who don't live in Hartford will be paying a little bit of a tax when they buy something here, and then thus contributing to the upkeep and maintenance of our town. And yeah, so it's a way that Hartford residents, certainly we can presume, probably pay more sales tax in Hartford than out of towners. However, this is one way that out of towners can contribute to some of the services that they enjoy when they come and visit Hartford and make purchases here.
Great. Next question.
Thank you. Eric Krause, Hartford. I stand to benefit if this proposal passes, is approved, and is used to relieve property taxes. However, I am opposed to approving it at this point, and I would strongly encourage voters to vote no on this article, and in addition, to email their select board as to why, so that there's some feedback. Select board, all one word, at hartford-vt.org. One sentence, why you might think it's not appropriate. My reasoning, and I think there are a number of reasons, and some people have pointed some out. One of the things that I've been banging on is the question of equity in terms of property taxes and in terms of the sales tax. And this is a question that the town has not presented anything on. Zero. And there is some data that I'm holding in hand here from the Vermont Department of Taxes. You can find it on the Department of Taxes website under data and statistics, under property tax credit statistics. There are 2,749 homesteads in the town of Hartford. Of those, 387 receive municipal property tax credits. So there's a property tax credit potential on the school side and the municipal side. 387, which is 14% of the homesteads in the town of Hartford, get a credit. There's a potential that those homesteads, those households that own those homesteads, will not benefit. In fact, they might be worse off financially by passing this tax. And the reason is they get their tax liability is capped at a certain level based on their income. And so if I gave an example at the January 3rd info night, and you can tune into that. I'm not going to go into all the numbers right now, but basically a household with an income equal to or less than $47,000 a year that owns a house, let's say it's valued at, or a house site valued at $150,000. It does not appear, if you use the online calculator from the department's website, it does not appear that they're going to get any benefit out of this. But at the same time, they're going to be paying out of pocket more on the sales tax side. So they don't benefit on the property tax side, but they get a hit on the sales tax side. So in Vermont, we have a relatively progressive, but it's still regressive, but it's regressive, but it's better than in other states because of all the exemptions on the sales tax side. On the property tax side, it's an attempt to be progressive. Low and moderate income people get tax credits. The unfortunate part is that those tax credits, the income threshold hasn't changed anytime recently. 2015 is the date that I am aware of. It was set at $47,000. If that had been rising according to in alignment with inflation, it would be something about like $63,000 or $64,000 now. So it's not. So basically, if you see someone from your state delegation in the room, we should be talking to them. Why is that the case? Why aren't we trying to maintain a progressive property tax system? The other thing that I'd like to point out is that the state has the data. And the reason I say this is because they couldn't generate our property tax bills without the data. They know what our household's income is, and they know what our house site values are. So they have the two pieces of data to answer this. The other piece of data that's part of the equation in figuring out who pays and who benefits is what we're buying. And that, individual households can decide on that, or we can come up with estimates for that. Windsor County. So I've been asking the department for granular data at the Hartford level because I think it's important. It's not available on their website, but as granular as they get is down to Windsor County. So when I presented at the January 13th info night, someone asked me, well, is this scenario even occur in Hartford? Are there households that are $47,000 or less income with house sites of $150,000? And the answer is probably. Windsor County, the data from the department's website, in the household income bracket of $0 to $10,000, the average house site value is $151,000, almost $152,000. If we move up to the next bracket, $10,000 to $20,000, average house site is $142,000. Next bracket, $20,000 to $30,000, average house site value, 150, rounding off $151,000. $30,000 to $40,000, $164,000. And the next bracket is split because it goes from 40 to 50. And so that one's a little vague. So
okay.
I know you want me to stop, but basically what I'm saying is, let's vote no on this. The idea of flogging a dead horse is I think an incorrect analogy, because I think we say no and we come back and do the analysis and see if it actually makes sense to do this. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Eric. Responses? Anybody from the board want to?
I disagree and I support this. I guess I don't know what else to say after that.
I mean, I would just say in a conversation, Eric, I really super value your deep dives, and I also dove as deep as I could on the background on this and the data and the statistics. And I think I suggested something along the lines of perhaps we, if the ballot measure passes and we have a local option sales tax, a small portion could be included to do a study on the impacts and effectiveness of it. And he was like, no, you can't get this data. So.
Sure, quick follow-up.
Quick follow-up on that is that, as you know, Kim, I'm opposed to approving it and then doing a study on it. Just like I would have been opposed, or I hope I would have been opposed to approving the use of DDT and then doing a study to see whether it caused all sorts of ecological damage. It's very difficult to sort of tease out the signal from the noise after the fact. It's better to look at the data up front, and municipalities can make requests, data and analysis requests to the Department of Taxes, and they carry more weight. They even say it on the website. We prioritize data and analysis requests from municipalities versus individuals. Thank you.
Yes, next question.
Colin Butler, Wilder. This is a math question or an arithmetic question. Mike, did you say that Hartford sales tax receipts currently are $157 million a year?
That's the, yes, that's the number we have.
I think that must be total sales, not sales tax. Otherwise, the sales would be in the billions.
Something wrong with that because
No, that's not the sales tax amount.
Okay, right.
That's the sales amount.
what are the sales tax revenues from Hartford? 6% of that number?
$156 million in sales.
Yeah, 156 million.
No, I think that's the sales tax.
I think you said it was the sales tax, and I think you're wrong. And here's why. If the sales tax receipts from Hartford are $157 million a year, then 1% of the 6% currently being charged would be something like $25 or $26 million.
Yeah.
And if you raised an additional 1%, that would be another $25 or $26 million coming back to the town. And that's just outside the realm of possibility. So something's wrong with what you.
If I said
earlier.
sales tax, I was probably mistaken. I'll turn over to John because he can.
We
explain where the number.
certainly ran our calculations by the Department of Taxation in Vermont, and they said our methodology was sound.
You want to flick back to that
Yeah.
slide? That'd be great.
That's it.
Right, so I think that is incorrect. That first line, right, it's 157 million in sales
Yeah.
from Hartford.
Yeah, that should just say sales.
I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right. It's right. I concur with John. $157 million in sales.
Sales tax is what it is.
Oh, that's.
Okay,
Okay.
your question has been noted, Colin. Yeah. Next question.
Mike Morris, Hartford, again. One thing I haven't heard about, is this going to cause any additional burden on staff having to deal with this extra sales option tax? Is that going to create a lot of burden on staff at all?
John can probably answer, but the state collects the tax. We don't have to do any tax collecting.
The finance director could probably confirm what I'm about to say, which is that with regard, for example, to the rooms, meals, and alcohol tax, there's very little staff time taken up with monitoring and administering that. We simply get, I believe, quarterly reports. Is that right, Gail? From the state as to what the receipts are, and we see the revenue. I imagine it would be the same for a sales tax.
Okay, stepping back slightly to the big picture here, we're on item number 1, which is to receive the reports of the town officers. We've heard some excellent presentations. We've had some good Q&A on some of the ballot issues that we're going to see on Tuesday. There's a couple other things we want to do under this, but before we do that, does anybody have any more questions or comments about these topics that we've talked about? Okay, another item I do want to make sure we get to here is I think we have at least one person here from one of the agencies that's requesting an allocation on Tuesday's ballot. And so I would love to, anybody who's here from any of the agencies, this is a great time to address the group.
Whoops, uh-oh.
And remember to tell us, do you live here in Hartford? You do, fantastic.
I did something wrong. Oh, yes, I live in Wilder. My name is Sugar Genero. My official name is Cadence Genero, and I'm a member of the Family Place Board of Directors. And I'm just here to thank the town for their support of the Family Place. It has been continuing, and we're very, very grateful for it. Many of the programs that the Family Place conducts include family learning together, infant and toddler early care and education programs, parent support groups and workshops, and acting as a resource for financial assistance and mental health services. I think you can see a little bit more of the detail on page 141 in the town report, but we thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Sugar. Is there anybody else here from one of the agencies requesting? Yes, please come on up.
Oops, now I'm messing things up. See, I don't get paid for tech support.
It's our trick microphone.
I'm Alice Ely. I'm Executive Director for the Public Health Council of the Upper Valley, and I am not a resident of the town of Hartford.
Okay, is there any objection to hearing Alice's comment? Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. The request for funding from the Public Health Council is, I believe, item number 11 on the ballot this year. And I want to say thank you very much to the voters of the town who signed our petition to allow us to put this request forward. And we have been receiving support from the town for a number of years now, and we're very grateful for that as well. I would just like to say very briefly that we are a trusted leader in the Upper Valley on topics related to public health, supporting the people, the professionals, and the organizations to build healthier and more equitable communities. As public health challenges like health disparities, limited access to care, and resource constraints grow more complex, the Public Health Council remains committed to adapting to the evolving needs of our communities. We are recognized by the state of New Hampshire as one of their regional public health networks in the absence of local governmental public health, and we collaborate very closely with the Vermont Department of Health. In our request, we mentioned a few things that we do that we believe benefit you and your neighbors. This includes free community flu vaccine clinics, improved access to services for older adults and others, and ensuring core public health services like emergency preparedness and addressing health disparities. I have lots more I can talk about. If anyone has any questions, I don't want to just go on with the spiel if you're not interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Great. Okay, we are getting to the end of item number 1 here, which is to receive the reports of the town officers. Any other questions or comments on this section? Okay, the motion was made by Mike and seconded by Kim to receive the reports of the town officers. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it and the motion has carried. We're now on to number 2. Once again, if you're following along, it's the first blue page here in the big book. Question number 2 is to vote to collect town general and highway tax and the town school district's tax on real estate in 2 installments. The first being on or before August 15th, 2025, and the second installment being on or before February 6th, 2026 through the treasurer. Is there a motion? Okay, the motion made by Mike. Is there a second? Okay, and seconded by Mary. So the motion has been made and seconded to vote to collect town general and highway tax and the town school district's tax on real estate in 2 installments. The first being on or before August 5th, 2025, and the second installment being on or before February 6th, 2026 through the treasurer. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing nobody approaching the microphone, I will then call for the vote. And so once again, yes. Yes, please approach. Yep.
Not specific to this. Well, it is specific to the motion because some folks, this is their first town meeting. And so they're trying to understand what process happened ahead of this vote so that all residents of the town knew that they could come vote today, that this is happening here, not on the ballot. Does that question make sense?
The question being sort of where we are in the town meeting cycle, or?
So for folks that are that haven't been to a town meeting, they're used to going to the ballot on Tuesday, and that's where they can make all the town decisions are made and they're, understanding. So then they're wondering how having this vote now with this many people, why that happens now and not on the ballot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. At the start of the meeting, I did indicate that our town meeting in Hartford, thanks to our charter, has a couple of unusual parts. It's quite common in Vermont, either towns have all of their business conducted on the floor like this, either on Tuesday or Saturday, or some towns like Hartford put the bigger money questions and the candidates onto what's called Australian ballot, which is all-day secret balloting. And so that's what's happening on town meeting day, is so-called Australian balloting. And that's the second blue page here. So it's a more than 2-page list. So Hartford, like many towns, has divided this town meeting into 2 parts. So this part here on town and school district meeting day is the so-called floor meeting. And this is the agenda of things that we look at for today. And then Hartford also, thanks to our charter, we have our budget and candidates night, which we had on Monday as well. So it's a little bit different town to town. That's kind of the Hartford system, and that's why we're here at the moment. Okay. Let's see. Yes, we had a motion from Mike and a second from Mary to vote to collect town general and highway tax and the school districts and the town school district's tax on real estate in 2 installments, the first being on or before August 15th, 2025, and then the second installment being on or before February 6th, 2026 through the treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it and the motion has carried.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Point of order, yes.
When you move to the next item on the agenda and you're looking for a motion, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up privately, I meant to a year or 2 ago, your practice is to turn and ask the select board or the school board to offer the motion and a second.
Yeah.
You should be asking the entire body to make the motion and provide a second. It's not the purview of either board to make and second the motions that we're considering. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Colin. So Colin has done something called a point of order, which is somebody can bring up a question about the rules of the game. So that was a perfect use of Robert's rules. And then the question was, why do I turn to the school board or select board for the motion? And the reason is that whoever puts the item on the ballot gets to speak to it first. So I start with whoever put the item on the ballot. In this case, it was the select board or the school board. It's possible for the public to petition articles directly onto the ballot, in which case I would ask that person for the motion and the second, and we would proceed from there. So I believe that's my understanding of Robert's rules, and I'm certainly happy to be corrected on that going forward. But I think that's why I do it anyway. Okay, our third item now is the long one. So I'll read it through. I have to read it through according to Robert's rules, so bear with me here. Item 3 is to vote what compensation the town will pay its town officers from the general fund, effective July 1st, 2025, pursuant to 24 V.S.A. Section 932. The moderator, $100 per meeting. The Board of Civil Authority, $50 per 4-hour shift or any part thereof. the treasurer $16,000 per annum, the select board $100 per meeting, with the chair receiving $300 additional per annum and the vice chair receiving $150 additional per annum, with select board members eligible to receive a dependent care reimbursement in the amount of $20 per hour for meeting attendance. Such officials will receive. What are we doing here? To me?
I'm trying to get you loud enough and you.
Okay. Okay, sorry. We're working across purposes here. I'll get back here. Such officials will receive mileage reimbursement in the amount equivalent to the rate authorized by the IRS when a town vehicle is not available to them. Is there a motion? So moved. Okay, motion from Mike. Is there a second? And second from Mary. Okay. So now we are discussing item 3. I'm not going to read it again since I just did. Is there a question, comment, discussion on this item?
Mike Morris, Hartford, again. Now that I'm not justice of the peace in town, I'm not having any bias here. I would like to do a friendly amendment to the motion that the Board of Civil Authority pay change from $50 for a 4-hour period to $100. They are elected officials. I feel probably 50+% of the people in the town don't even know what that job consists of and how hard they have to work and what they have to do. And for 4-hour periods, $50 compared to the other elected officials, I think is unfair. And I'd like to make that motion, please.
Okay, we have
The amendment, brother.
We have a proposed amendment here to Article 3, which is to change the compensation for the Board of Civil Authority from $50 to $100 per 4-hour shift. Is there a second? Okay, a second. So a motion's been made by Mike, seconded by Colin. So what we're going to do is we are now going to discuss just this amendment. So the question now on the floor is to change the compensation of the Board of Civil Authority from $50 to $100. So we're going to deal with this question, and then we'll get back to number 3. So Mike, you want to say anything else now that you're, okay, great. Yes, Kim.
Great suggestion, Mike. I fully support that in theory, but not in, I will vote and oppose to it at this time for the same reason that I did vote in opposition to raising other elected officials' pay prior to it being discussed during the budget process. So like I think had this come up as a suggestion while we were estimating the expenses in the budget, I would have full-heartedly supported it. And I will support it as a citizen in a future discussion if it's estimated and with the numbers in the budget that we're putting before the voters on Tuesday.
Yes, Lenny.
Oh, yeah. Turning to our finance administrator, I think she's looking, but is there a way to do a quick back of the napkin calculation on what that would increase the budget to for Board of Civil Authority?
I'll give you a chance to look at it.
That's what I figured. That's why I said you're trying to figure that out. So
Oh,
I
well,
assumed as much.
while Gail's looking at that, any other comments, questions? Yes. So again, we're talking about the amendment
Thank you,
of
Gail.
going from 50 to 100.
Colin Butler. Wilder. I'm speaking to the amendment, but I'm also concerned with the approach that the select board takes as opposed to the school board, for example. The select board has chosen to list the compensation for the select board and others in their motion. The school board leaves it up to the voters in the room to set their compensation. The problem I have with what the select board's motion calls for is proven by the statement that Kim just made, that she won't support the motion to amend because it's not part of, if I'm understanding correctly, because it wasn't factored into the budget that's been presented to the voters. So if we change compensation for the Board of Civil Authority, then it's going to be outside the scope of the current budget that we're approving, and they're gonna have to come up with that money from some other source. That puts us in a bind. You're essentially telling us our only choice is to vote the motion that you prepared in advance because that's what fits the budget. So you're essentially taking away from us our authority in town meeting to set your compensation by essentially insisting that we follow the motion that you've presented. That's just not right.
Just to clarify, I think Kim was saying why she intended to vote against it. The fact of the matter is whatever the voters decide today is what the budget is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yep.
And residents can also come up and suggest a lower amount. So there is, yeah, anyway, you can change the results of this motion, whether it be higher or lower or the same. I'm just, yeah, I'm one vote in this room.
Yes, question here.
Hello? Okay, good. Just much as I would love to take that the board on this side take credit for the way we approach this issue, the fact is that the motion was left out by accident. We actually do exactly the same thing. We've amended that. Chuck has the exact same language from our side. We just screwed up this time.
Peter, I appreciate you falling on your sword there. It certainly is traditional that the figures are listed for both town and school. Yes.
What you meant by that.
Yes, what Peter suggested is when we get to the school business next, when the question of what to pay the school directors, there's no specific dollar value listed, but what Peter suggested was that they left that out. They meant to put it in. And so we have a motion that when the time comes, we'll make for the school too. But the clarification is usually the numbers are printed. Okay, so we're discussing the amendment to change the compensation of the Board of Civil Authority from $50 to $100. Additional discussion.
Yes, Mike Morse again, Hartford. I'm sure we have funds in unassigned fund, not budgets, but accounts that could cover for this, I think, insignificant amount compared to our total budget. To, like I said, let's be fair to everybody and balance it out a little bit. Like I said, the Justice of the Peace and other members, the select board, and everything else that participate in these meetings, take election day. They're open from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and then they stay all night until whatever time they finish counting the ballots. They spend days during abatements and different meetings helping out people that have hardships. They've been flooded, tax abatements and everything else. There's a lot of work that goes into this, more than people realize. People that have hardships and can't pay their taxes. And I think that they've been treated unfairly for many years. I don't know when the last time the Board of Civil Authority had a pay change. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Other discussion, comments? It may be too quick, Gail, for us to get a number, which is perfectly fine. Want me to pass over, or do you have an estimate?
Gail Ostrout, Finance Director. I'm not a resident of Hartford, but I spend my life here. So currently in the budget that we have together right now is $13,500 for that particular line item. And if you're looking to add to double it, it would be the 27,000, and it would have about a penny difference.
Okay.
Adding. It's rounding, but
great.
Very small amount.
Everybody hear that? So it's right now 13,500, and it would go to 27,000 if the amendment carries. Further discussion on this amendment.
If I may, Chuck, Heidi Due to White River Junction. Gail, is that money actually utilized every year? Is there money left in reserve? If you could, please. Thank you.
So not everybody who participates on that board takes the pay, just as several other boards and commissions that we have. Not everybody takes it. And so yes, sometimes at the end of the year, there is funds left over, and it also depends on, if we have anything special that comes up that will require the extra meetings.
Okay, on the floor is this amendment to change the compensation. Yes.
On that, but those, any unused funds for that are not saved in reserve for that particular purpose. They're not encumbered for the V.S.A specifically. If any remaining funds would go into the unassigned fund. And when you say about a 1 penny difference, does that mean that if we put this increase in now, it could be reflected in what the tax rate is set in July so that it actually would be funded by the fiscal 26 tax bills?
Yes, I can speak to that's correct. If the voters opt to allocate this money, then it'll become part of the tax rate when it's set. Yeah.
So it wouldn't have to be found from other sources.
No,
Okay.
exactly. It would be added to the budget. Yeah. Other discussion, questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to be, I didn't write down the specific language of the motion, but I think it's pretty clear what we're talking about. So the amendment on the floor right now is to change the number in Article 3 here to compensate the Board of Civil Authority, to change that from $50 to $100. So if you vote yes or aye, you're going to vote for $100. If you vote nay, you're going to vote to keep it at 50. So that's what's on the floor right now. So I'm going to ask everybody in favor of changing the Board of Civil Authority compensation from $50 to $100, signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay, I think the ayes resoundingly have it. So we've now dispensed with the amendment. And so we now have an amended motion that I will bring back in order here. I'm going to make a little note on my, there we go. Okay, so we are back to Article 3, as written with one amendment, which is that the Board of Civil Authority compensation has been changed to $100 per 4-hour shift. Is there additional discussion, comment, questions about Article 3?
Colin Butler, Wilder. It's a question. The Select Board is part of the Board of Civil Authority. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the Select Board compensation is $100 per meeting. The Board of Civil Authority is $50 per 4-hour session. Does the Select Board collect $100 for a Board of Civil Authority meeting, or does it get paid the same as the other V.S.A members when it meets, or do they not take pay?
Great question. And fortunately, we have our town clerk with us.
Thank you for that question, Colin. Lisa O'Neill, the town clerk. I do live in Hartford. The Board of Civil Authority, which the Select Board is part of when they're doing Board of Civil Authority functions such as tax appeals, tax abatement, and election, they are compensated through my office as a V.S.A member, not as a Select Board.
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, next question.
Hi, Ashley Andrews still, Hartford Village. Just a statement that I think it's amazing that the Select Board has adopted the child care reimbursement. And while as a candidate, and if I were ever a board member, I wouldn't plan to use it if my husband is at home with our children. But I think it's such an amazing way to allow people who may be a single parent and don't have that significant other to watch their children to be able to get involved. So just that if that had been there, 8 years ago, I might have been able to run for the board sooner. So just kudos to that.
Yes, next question, comment.
Mike Morris, Hartford again. I forgot to mention earlier or ask earlier if there could be a clarification of what is considered a meeting for the Select Board, School Board, or Civil Authority. I think if we explain that, it's a 4-hour period, whatever. But what is considered a meeting by the town's definition?
That's a great question. Why don't we just restrict it to the town side for now, because we can ask the school board when we get to the school side. Does anybody know? Yes. What's the definition of a meeting?
My understanding is that it's for any publicly warned meeting.
Okay, so,
And that does mean for like, if you're a liaison to a committee, you can also submit for those meetings.
okay, because
Which is-
I don't think general public understands all that because hindsight, I look back on when I was on the board and everything else. Those liaison meetings are volunteer. You're volunteering to do that service. It's not what you were elected for. So
Yeah, some
that's
of-
why I asked for a definition.
Yeah.
What is considered a meeting, a payable, compensatable meeting?
I mean, and I know that many of us don't submit for those, but some do, and it is within the purview, I think, to do so. And some of the liaisons are voting members of their committees too, so it's less of a volunteer. I mean, it's all somewhat volunteer.
Great.
Hmm?
Okay, we are continuing to look at Article 3 here. Any more discussion, comments, questions on Article 3? Okay, seeing none, I will read the amended motion and then call for the vote. So the motion is to vote what compensation the town will pay its town officers from the general fund effective July 1, 2025, pursuant to 24 V.S.A. Section 932. Moderator, $100 per meeting. Board of Civil Authority, $100 per 4-hour shift or any part thereof. Treasurer, $16,000 per annum. Select Board, $100 per meeting, with the chair receiving $300 additional per annum and the vice chair receiving $150 additional per annum, with Select Board members eligible to receive a dependent care reimbursement in the amount of $20 per hour for meeting attendance. Such officials will receive mileage reimbursement in the amount equivalent to the rate authorized by the IRS when a town vehicle is not available to them. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes overwhelmingly have it and the motion carries. Okay, we are on to number 4, which is to do any other necessary and proper non-binding business, which is to say we're not going to vote on anything under this item, regardless of what we discuss. We've covered a lot of items so far. We have a few things that I know that the Select Board wants to take care of, so we'll start with that. And then I will point out that when this item is over, our town meeting adjourns for the year. So when someone's ready, you can always call for the meeting to be adjourned, and that will conclude both this item and the meeting. So I will wait and see if anybody wants to make that motion along the way. But meantime, we have a couple of things we want to get to. So Mike, why don't I turn it over to you to get started.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks very much, Chuck. What we like to do and what our rules of procedure say is for departing board members, they receive a plaque. And so this year we will see Kim Souza leave the board after, I believe, something like 7 years of really excellent service, including serving as clerk for a long time and being a very valuable vice chair to me. So we're going to give her the plaque, and I think she deserves a round of applause. Can you hear me? I appreciate that. It's been definitely an honor to serve in this role, and I look forward to just kind of engaging in ways with future boards and as a resident and a business owner in town, and just I really appreciate. One of my favorite things about town meeting is counting the number of knitters in the audience. And so far I've seen 5 today, which is a pretty good turnout. Thanks to all of you. And I hope that future boards will continue to focus on those essentials and the nuts and bolts while also maintaining a real sense of respect and dignity and compassion for all of the people that live, work, and play in our wonderful town. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kim, for your dedication to the town. And I think that means the knitting index is about 8% here, which is great to have that on the record. Is there any other necessary and proper non-binding business to come before the citizenry today? Yes, indeed. Great.
Hello. Hi, folks. I'm Esme Cole, and I'm a resident of Hartford. I'm also one of your state reps here. And I wanted to share an opportunity to speak with you about state level business, which I think we should save today, of course, for town relevant affairs. Although everything is quite interconnected, as you all know, including with the federal level. And so this coming Friday, March 7th at 4:30, I'm going to host a little conversation where you're welcome to come and chat with me about what I'm observing in Montpelier. But even more importantly, I'd love to hear from all of you. We have some huge, huge changes that are taking place and that I think, probably should take place that I would love to gather some of your input on. But lots going on, and a lot of these issues are extremely complex. So I think some like face-to-face conversations about like these really, really important things that concern all of us and involve our taxpayer dollars would be really beneficial. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. So, the Bugby Senior Center at 4:30 on Friday, which is March 7th. And I have a list here, which I'd like to pass around or something, or leave somewhere for your name and email, so I can send you maybe a reminder about this, or just to stay in communication about other things if you have other questions that you want to talk about one-on-one in regards to the state level. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Esme, and thank you for working on our behalf up in Montpelier. Yeah. Other necessary and proper non-binding business to come before the group. Okay, I see none. I would entertain them. Yeah.
Joe, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Laney Collins again. So I may or may not be here next year, depending on what the vote is on Tuesday, but I'd just like to thank everyone in the town of Hartford who has supported me in past as a select board member. It's been a distinct honor to serve the town and community, both in my service that I had on the fire department, as well as the time that I spent as a select board member. It gives me great honor that you've had enough faith in me to allow me to serve you for the number of years that I have. So I thank you for that very much. For those of you that have supported me, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And for those that I haven't, I just appreciate you putting up with me. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Lanny. Okay.
Mike Morris again, definitely non-binding business. Last night I was fortunate enough to be in this gymnasium watching this young group of men on the varsity team now going to Barrie for the finals next Wednesday, and their second year in a row. This to me is a very unique team. There's not one senior on this varsity team. There is one freshman, and we got a strong JV team coming up behind it. And I hope the town gets behind them and congratulates them on this great accomplishment.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to have the sports section of the of town meeting. Okay, I'm looking around and wondering if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn. It doesn't have to be what you say, Colin.
I'll make that motion, but I've got an observation or two observations to make first. The first observation is I used to live in the town of Sharon way back in the time the dinosaurs roamed Vermont. And for 10 years attended town meeting in Sharon. And it was very well attended meeting. And one of the highlights of each year's meeting was that we saw several of our state legislators who would come and speak at length. I'm thinking in particular of David Brown, if anybody in the room remembers him, would share what was going on in Montpelier. And I appreciate Esme popping up just now to make sure we knew she was here and that she was available to be in touch with. I really appreciated years ago hearing what was going on in Montpelier during the town meeting. And I would encourage our legislators to show up here. I don't know if any of the others are here today or not, but it's really nice to get a little bit of a briefing on what's going on at the Capitol and give us a little bit of a appreciation for how our legislators feel about what's going on. It's a good face-to-face opportunity for that to happen. With the current format of town meeting being as relaxed as it is, as opposed to what it used to be when it was all we had to vote a budget, I think there's plenty of time for that to happen. And then the second observation is, I'm not sure the select board or the school board hears from the townspeople other than when we're upset with them. In my case, I kind of make myself heard more than a lot of other people, but there are a lot of people in town, I suspect, that are somewhere between very annoyed or very pleased with what you're doing at any point in time. And I think you probably miss hearing from a lot of us. And I just want to say for myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else now, I want to thank both boards for all the effort they put in. The compensation is just a minor soothing of the wound. I suspect there's a lot of time and effort put in, and I'll single out Kim, not because I always agree with her, because frequently I don't, but the level of energy that she demonstrates, the amount of effort she puts into her board service is exemplary. And I would encourage other members of the board, current and future, to put that kind of time and effort into their work on our behalf. It really makes us feel good to see how engaged some board members are, and not so good with how disengaged others are. Thanks a lot.
Good. Thank you, Colin.
You want that motion?
Yes, sir.
I move we adjourn town meeting for 2025.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adjourn the 2025 town meeting. Is there a second? Second from Lanny. Okay, under Robert's rules, this is not a debatable motion. This is one we go straight to the vote on. All those in favor of adjourning town meeting 2025 signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and the town portion of our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our select board and town staff. Why don't we take 5 minutes here, stretch, move around, do some jumping jacks, and then we will call to order the school portion of today's meeting. So take a few minutes here just to relax. How are we doing, Suze? Thank you. No, it's just a little unfortunate. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find your way back to your seats, we'll resume here shortly. No, that's great. Happy to do. Yeah. There's something to do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, folks, please take your seats. This is always the hardest part of the whole town meeting is getting the meeting to come back to order.
Speak up because it just keeps feeding back.
Yeah, is that why? I'm like,
Protection tone, taking control of the room tone.
okay.
I need you to just talk louder. I'm trying really hard and I'm right at the edge of feedback.
Okay, good. I'll speak louder. Come on up and find your seats, everybody. We're ready to get going. Yep. We can't resume without Lynn Bohai. There we go. My backup parliamentarian. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will declare the meeting in order. The 2025 school district portion of the town and school district annual meeting. So for those of you who have the big book, we've been on the town side, and you can conveniently flip the book over and get to the school side. Inside, there are 2 pages that have a green bar across the top. The first page is what we'll be voting on Tuesday, and the second page is what we're going to be talking about here today. Okay. I will get right into the action here. So our first item is to receive the reports of the Board of School Directors. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Peter. Is there a second? Okay, second from Nancy. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at item 1 on our agenda to receive the reports of the Board of School Directors. Is there anybody from the board who wishes to speak or make any presentation? Not required, but available.
Usually we ask the superintendent.
Yes. Great. Katie, do you want all set?
Okay, we have a slideshow evidently.
Okay, great. We have some slides here.
Trying to work on the projector. I'm not sure what.
Okay. No trouble. If we're working on our audio visual up here to get the projector running, happy to entertain any questions or comments related to the reports of the school directors, which once again is this book here that we have in front of us. So. It's good. Gives everybody a chance to quickly scan 50 pages, digest the information. There we go. Okay. It's looking promising.
We don't have.
Okay, great. Ready to roll? Great. Thanks, Katie. Take it away. Yep.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me permission to speak. I'm not a resident of Hartford, but I appreciate the approval in my role as interim superintendent. On the screen, you're going to see a rolling photo reel of images that have been taken from the district newsletters that I've been sharing with you each month. As a reminder of some of the things that we have happening in the school district on a daily basis, with the intention of just visually giving you an idea of some of the things that we have been focusing on this year with students at the center of our programming and of our co-curriculars. Some of the things that you can see if you're reviewing the annual report are, of particular note, all of the different messages and communications that are coming from our respective school building principals and directors. You will see a thread and theme of belonging throughout all of the messaging. We've really been focusing on building up our facilitation skills through restorative practice work and in allowing our students to be a part of robust advisories and crews that emphasize the sense of belonging in our schools, which, as I think I don't need to say, is the first step in allowing our students to feel ready for learning and to absorb the information that we are teaching them on a daily basis. Some other highlights that you'll see as you review the report are some of the things that we've been working on through professional development this year. We're continuing to build on our ELA and math curriculums, whether it be in the elementary and looking at EL education, which is a program we've been using for the last several years, or our Bridges mathematics program, which we've been using as well for the last few years in our elementary schools, and our focus on all learners network work for mathematics throughout the district. And this is a custom approach to personalize specifically math learning for our students in the district while aligning and coordinating the curriculum across our schools. So have a look, and we're available, of course, to answer any additional questions that you might have about some of the things that we've been working on. Another big effort, which I think some of you have seen go out in my communications, is our work on a vision of a graduate. We just had a community forum earlier this week where we invited the community to come and look at a first draft of that vision, with the intention of that vision really being the document and the input from the community that's going to design the way in which we allocate resource backward. So with that as the vision, that as the aspiration, we look to that as a way for us to coordinate our programming, think about what our students and staff need to realize that vision through human and material resource. So that was a big effort to engage in on day one of our work together at our very first district in-service day. We've been continuing that work and continuing the theme also of storytelling in tandem with that effort, in order to gather the stories of our community members, whether they be students, staff members, administrators, community members, caregivers, in order to really think about what we're all bringing to this vision and what we hope to see as our students work their way through their tenure in our district and emerge on the other end into the community.
Okay, any questions, comments for Katie or the school board about the reports of school directors? Okay, I see nobody approaching the microphone, so I will then call for the vote. So to receive the reports of the Board of School Directors, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the ayes clearly have it and the motion carries. Okay, the next item, number 2, is to see what compensation the school district will vote to pay the Board of School Directors from school district funds pursuant to 16 V.S.A. 562. As Peter indicated earlier, ideally, the numbers would have been printed in the, on the warning. And so I have the information here that the school board has given to me, so I'll read it to you. So this is going to be the official motion. So because it's not printed, I'm happy to repeat it, or you can jot down notes. No, it's fine. I'm happy to. Yeah. Okay, so the full motion that we're going to discuss is to see what compensation the school district will pay the Board of School Directors from school district funds pursuant to 16 V.S.A. 562. Members of the Board of School Directors be compensated $100 per meeting for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025, and the chair of the Board of School Directors being compensated $300 for the school year commencing July 1, 2025, and the clerk be compensated $150 for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025. So that's the motion on the table. I can just quickly summarize it again. It's for the members of the school board to be paid $100 per meeting, and for the chair to receive an extra $300 for the year, and for the clerk to receive an additional $150 for the year. So that's the motion that we have. Questions, comments? Anybody wish to speak to this motion? Great question. Thank you, Lynn. Is there a motion? Who wants to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. So moved.
Okay, the motion's been made by Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Nancy. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that lapse protocol. Discussion, questions on this item?
Heidi Duto, White River Junction, Vermont. I would just like a little clarification. I did a FOIA asking for the stipend payments of the school board. I also did it for the town. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the school board has bi-monthly meetings normally, and they take a break during the summer, other than your retreat, which I did attend this past year. Thank you for allowing me to. How are a couple people seated on the school board billing their meetings, because they are very large? And I'd just like to have a little clarification on that.
Your question is like the total amount of for reimbursement payment? Okay. Anybody wish to speak to that?
So we get paid $100 per meeting. The meetings include the quote regular school board meetings, which you described, but they also include any meetings in which the school board member is attending as a representative of the school board. So if you were working, for instance, and appearing at Corey meetings, you would get paid for attending that. If you were doing other kinds of meetings, you could get paid for those other meetings. And the test has always been, if the meeting is a meeting that gets reported out during the course of the regular school board meeting, i.e. Hakori did this when I was present kind of thing, then that would be a meeting that we get paid for.
So following up on my original question, I'm trying not to disclose what I'm actually asking about. A couple of members are billing. Are they billing for state meetings and state school board meetings, school association meetings? I'm just asking for a lot of clarity. Because like I said, I've asked for it since 2020, what the stipends are, and I need to understand a little better, if I could.
They're primarily district-related meetings. You know, the other meetings are compensated other ways, you know, via mileage or a general stipend, you know, for that activity, you know, as a per diem. But they're not let's say commingled. They are separate.
So without disclosing whose stipends I'm actually referring to, how are, in, not this year yet, but in, I believe it was 23, without pulling it up on my phone, how did one individual get almost $15,000 and the other one get almost $19,000? Because there are definitely not enough meetings to bill for that amount of money. And I would really like to know how that money was billed and for what.
Those are separate meetings that occur during, the course of the school year. That are not regular, board meetings. Attending, subcommittee meetings on behalf of the board, or attending, meetings, with school attorneys, representing, the board in very specific, casework, other than regular board meetings.
So weren't these supposed to be warned meetings that were being billed for?
Not if they are related to board transactions, for example, with, the attorneys, you wouldn't be listing, those meetings, as an open meeting, because usually they're related to very specific,
Understood.
Okay,
you know.
I want to get on to the next question.
Can I
too.
just ask one final question, Chuck?
Let me come back to you. I want to, or is it a follow-up?
It's gonna be
Okay,
really, really quick.
okay.
So if I was interested in seeing the actual submission of reimbursement for a meeting, who would I direct that email towards? Would it be Jacob or would it be the town? Financial, how would I know they're two separate municipalities, but where would I get that information from?
You can send that to me.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Heidi. Yes, next question.
I'd like to move an amendment. I'm Colin Butler. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion on the floor to restrict compensation for board members to warned meetings of the school board and for meetings of the VLCT attended by the one person appointed by this board to represent the board at VLCT, not VLCT, V.S.A.
Okay, I'm obligated to write this down in a motion that we can discuss. So your first question was?
I want to amend the motion on the floor to restrict board compensation to only warned public meetings of the board, with the exception of meetings attended by the board's representative to the V.S.A.
Can I make a clarification on this?
Let me just make sure I need to write
Okay.
this down here. Yep. Warn meetings of the board, with the exception of one paid member attending the Vermont School Board, or?
My understanding is that the school board has one representative that's delegated to represent the board at the V.S.A. I think that person is an officer of V.S.A. and there are quite a few meetings in the course of a year, and it would be an undue burden to expect that person to provide so much representation to the school district without some form of compensation. So I'm singling out that one instance for extra compensation. But I think it's unreasonable if the numbers that Heidi shared with us a moment ago are anything like accurate. I think it's unreasonable for us to be paying those sorts of sums to our school board for meetings that we don't know are occurring or we don't see the results of. It's just a A little too nebulous for me.
Okay, Colin, here's what I have. See if you think, if you agree that I got the wording correct. So we will have the article as I read it with an additional sentence here at the end, which says, with said compensation restricted to warned meetings of the school board, with the exception of the one representative attending V.S.A meetings. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, so we now have a proposed amendment on the floor. Is there a second to that amendment? Second. Okay, so the amendment was made by Colin and seconded by Heidi, and that's now in order. And so we're discussing the proposed amendment. Yes.
Linbo High Wilder. What if the official representative to the VSBA is sick? Does someone else get to step in and not get paid?
I can answer that. 'Cause
Yes.
I am the representative for the ones of you who don't know who they're talking. Oh, I'm sorry. The ones of you don't know who they're talking about. They are talking about me. I am the representative from to the VSBA board. The local school board does not delegate who is going to be a representative to the VSBA. The Vermont State School Board Association comes to you or to a person that they feel they've watched for a little while, participate on their local boards. Then they say, we are interested. Would you be interested in running for being on the Vermont State School Board? Those last for 2 years. I am on my 6th year of serving on that board. I am very happy to serve on that board. There are a lot of meetings. I do report back to the board, anything that needs to be known at them at that time. I think, did I send some stuff to you, Colin, from VSBA? Okay, I will be happy to share anything that I do through the state, which indeed does affect our local school system, our local school district. I am also a regional director for them. That means I take care of I meet with other school boards, not just our school board. When I'm meeting with other school boards, I do not turn that time in. I'm not requesting to be paid for that at all. I am also serving on a committee for the National School Board. I do not turn that time in either. I think it's a real, I feel like I have brought a lot of information that we have not digested before because we've not had someone locally that could bring that would bring that information to us. I do a lot of testifying on the Hill. I do many, many things for the state school as a state school board as representative. But again, it affects what is happening right here in our district. And I can bring that kind of stuff from our district into the state and vice versa, the things that are happening at the state and especially that are happening right now. On the average, I spend anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week. I do not turn in all of that time. I will turn in when I have to go to a meeting, but all the rest of the stuff, I'm not turning in that time. I don't turn in the time when I go and testify. I don't turn in the time when we have a retreat. I don't turn in a time when we have some special training coming in from the Secretary of State and that kind of stuff. I do turn in the meetings that I go to for VSBA. We'll be happy to talk to anyone else, or if you have any further questions on this, that's where it stands.
I think,
Thank you.
My understanding, Nancy, of the amendment is that that would continue to be paid. Right, under this proposed amendment. That attending VSBA meetings would be compensated. Yes, Pierre.
So I understand why the motion was made, but I think it is a terribly bad idea in that it does not take into account the fact that the chair of the board is involved in numerous meetings with the superintendent, with attorneys, et cetera, in the course of a year that are integral to the functioning of the district. And that there should be compensation for that. With respect to other kinds of activities, if you go look, and I don't have a problem, I don't even know what the number is, but the vast majority of subcommittee meetings, which I participated in, most of around policy development work, which often went late into the night, I never bothered to put in. So I got paid for them if somebody took notes that it had happened and submitted on my behalf, which basically didn't happen more than once or twice over the 15 years I've been on the district, the board. But not everybody is in my position and can afford to put that much time into something without being compensated. I'm extraordinarily lucky in life. I didn't need the money. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to take it, so I didn't. But that's my particular choice, and I don't think that this amendment is appropriate.
Once again, let me just read the amendment so we understand what we're talking about. So the amendment would read as follows, which is, with said compensation restricted to warned meetings of the school board, with the exception of the one representative attending V.S.A meetings. So that's the amendment that's before us right now.
Take a check, Lanny Collins, Hartford. I think that the biggest thing I'm hearing out of this is the transparency and accountability is somewhat lacking in terms of the compensation that's taking place. If there could be more accountability from the school board in terms of what meetings you attended, the times you attended those meetings, I think this would help to clarify a lot of the confusion around the payment for those compensation. That would be a major first step that you all could take, is that reporting your times that you met and when those meetings took place. I'm not trying to call anybody out for trying to take advantage of the systems that are there, but it'd be nice to have a little bit more accountability and transparency on what is attended and what you're being paid for, so we can make sure that everything's all up front. If my statement has always been, if you're doing nothing wrong, you got nothing to worry about. So, thank you.
Chuck.
Yes.
I do turn in the times and I do turn in the dates, and I turn it in to Nicole over in administration. So they have the dates and the times that I have attended meetings, and I've turned it in for every single extra thing that I have had to do.
And likewise, I do as well. There's several different spreadsheets that are maintained because of the vast amount of activity that I'm involved with on behalf of the board, as chair. The work with, the accounts payable folks, the HR folks, the bank, the treasurer, the attorneys, in addition to our administration team, are all recorded and dated and documented. If we need to prepare, a spreadsheet for anyone, that is public information and is available.
Great, thank you. So once again, we're talking about the amendment here, not the article itself, the amendment. Is there additional discussion on the amendment? Okay, if not, I will read the amendment once again, and I'll ask for your vote on it. So the amendment is, with said compensation restricted to warned meetings of the school board, with the exception of the one representative attending V.S.A meetings. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, I think the nays quite clearly have it. So the amendment has been disposed, as they say. And so we are now back to Article 2. And let me read that again since it's not printed so everyone knows what we're talking about. So Article 2 in full says to see what compensation the school district will vote to pay the Board of School Directors from school district funds pursuant to 16 V.S.A. 562. Shall members of the Board of School Directors be compensated $100 per meeting for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025, and the chair of the Board of School Directors be compensated $300 for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025, and the clerk be compensated $150 for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025. Yes, discussion.
May I just ask if there has been, has the amount of stipends exceeded the amount budgeted and or how much is budgeted for, I guess I don't need to know the specific numbers, but has that line item in the budget exceeded what was budgeted for in previous years?
It varies year to year. Usually we do about 3,000 per board member, but I mean, it varies depending on the person and the year.
So it has exceeded that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, next question or comment.
I'm not sure it's, oh, there we go. Hi, Kim Dumont, White River Junction. I guess I'd like a definition of meeting because with the numbers that we have that are going into the thousands and each meeting is $100. How are we defining, I guess, a meeting? Are we paying, like, is it 15 minutes that we talked to a lawyer, we get paid $100? Is it I spent 6 hours at a retreat and I still get paid the same $100? I guess that's an appreciated definition of that. Thank you.
Is there an official board policy or how, what that is?
The policy was, and we discussed this several years ago, was if it was sufficiently important to the functioning of the board that it got reported out during the course of our main meetings, then that activity, whatever it was considered a meeting.
Did you hear, Kim, did you hear that? Yeah.
So we've never gone and said it has to last X amount of time, or it's basically been, we would regularly have conversations. Okay, Coach would say, I went over the payroll, found 3 issues, those have been corrected, that kind of thing. Or when I was doing policy meetings, I would say, I went over the policy X, Y, and Z. They have now been approved to the point that they're going to be brought before the school board for adoption by the school board, or we still need another 2 weeks or whatever.
Okay. Additional comment, question, or discussion on Article 2 here? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote here. So Article 2 is to see what compensation the school district will vote to pay the Board of School Directors from school district funds pursuant to 16 V.S.A. 562. Shall members of the Board of School Directors be compensated $100 per meeting for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025? And the chair of the Board of School Directors be compensated $300 for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025, and the clerk be compensated $150 for the school year commencing July 1st, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, I think the ayes clearly have it and the article carries. Okay, now we're on to an interesting one from my perspective. Article 3 is not really one that we can act on. And so I would say to this, because we have Article 1 to receive reports of school directors, that's our opportunity to talk about items that are on the Australian ballot. We can't talk about the candidates. So typically, all of this would have happened under Article 1. If anybody wants to talk about budget items, I suppose we could do that now. I would also entertain a fun Robert's Rules motion to postpone indefinitely, which is to say we could dispose of the article. Like, I don't want to leave it hanging there that we didn't do anything, but I also think there's nothing that we're voting on. I can't call for a vote on this one. Okay, great. We have a motion from Lanny to postpone Article 3 indefinitely. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Ashley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the motion carries. So we're on to number 4, which is to do any other necessary and proper non-binding business. So as with the town side, we have a couple of items we want to get to here. And this article will conclude when the meeting concludes with adjournment. So that's sort of where we are in the grand scheme. But first, I want to turn it over to Kevin to take it from here.
You know, first off, I'd like to thank everyone who attended today. As you saw with the opening of our event, it's all about our kids. Always has been and always will be. And, you know, someone asked me the other day, you know, when this started for me here in Hartford. And, you know, I had to think about it for a bit. And it all started in, this is scary, 1975. And then I started volunteering and coaching here in 1980. And since then, it's been just an incredible journey. You know, to look out in the audience and see a future board member of the board who was a student when I was teaching and coaching. To have a senator who was also a student now. That's that hurricane experience that we talk about. And it's a very, very special place. And we do accomplish some incredible things. I look out and see teachers here and administrators here that help our kids get across the finish line. And it is that drives the work. So I'd like to take a moment, and we are having a couple of board members exiting their work and service. Mr. Heaviside Sr. stepped up when others, you know, hadn't. He was appointed a member in 2023 through 2025. His confidence, integrity, passion has enabled him to fill the role of board member with vision and effectiveness. And his work on behalf of the school district, having gone far beyond that which might be expected, has shown extraordinary drive, sensitivity, compassion, as well as dedication to maintaining the school district's infrastructure. Now, therefore, be it resolved by his fellow board members that Douglas Heaviside Sr. be given a vote of sincere appreciation for his service on the Hartford School Board. And furthermore, that this resolution be recorded in the town records dated the first day of March, 2025. And our best wishes to Mr. Heaviside Sr. The second resolution is for our good friend and public servant, Mr. Peter Merrill, who has served on the Hartford School Board of Directors as an appointed member since 2011. And his confidence, integrity, and passion has enabled him to fill the role as board member with vision and effectiveness. His work on behalf of the school district, having gone beyond that which might be expected, has shown extraordinary drive, sensitivity, compassion, as well as dedication to maintaining the district's infrastructure. Now, therefore, be it resolved by his board members that Peter Merrill be given a vote of sincere appreciation for his many years of service on the Hartford School Board of Directors, and furthermore, that this resolution be recorded in the town records dated the first day of March 2025. Best wishes, Peter.
Let's say a few words. You're welcome.
So, I actually have been thinking about what I might say on this occasion since about 4 o'clock this morning. I don't know why, but lately I've been waking up at 4 o'clock, which is not my idea of fun. And they sort of considering the events coming ahead. And I concluded I wish to thank all of the people I have served with on this board over the last 15 years. Doesn't matter whether you liked me or not. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being part of the process. I wish to thank the administrators, the staff, and the faculty of this district, and all of the myriad of different programs we have to meet the needs of the children of our community and of the surrounding communities. I would like to thank the police force, which has over the years been of great support to the district, officers adopting individual schools and making themselves present in a way that showed that the students don't need to fear the authorities just because they're wearing a uniform. And I would especially like to thank Douglas Heaviside Sr., who cannot be here because of health issues. My hopes that he does well. And lastly, I don't normally talk at all about national politics at all, but at a time in which the dynamic seems to be splitting us up and separating us from each other, I would like us to remember that we are all part of the same community. I am hardly a religious person in any shape, way, or form, but in the Bible, in 2 different places, actually 3 different places, in the Gospel of Mark and Matthew, and in the Old Testament, there is an injunction: love thy neighbor as thyself. I hope we can do that. Thank you.
We have one other important piece of business that we need to share with the community, and we will continue to share this information as it becomes available to us. You've been seeing articles about the PCB contamination that has been occurring or has occurred in school buildings of a certain vintage, including ours. The Burlington School District and North Country have been in the news, you know, let's say prior to ours, because they were tested before ours. So what we'd like to do is to take this opportunity to give the community a further update. We had a special meeting on Thursday to bring the board up to speed with what has been going on with our situation here. So I'd like to have the superintendent and our director of buildings and grounds take this opportunity to inform the community of Hartford with where we're at this moment. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. I think Jonathan Garthwaite, our facilities director, has more detailed information. I think it makes sense to begin with an update from Mr. Garthwaite, similar to the information he provided on Thursday's meeting. And then, of course, I can supply any additional information from there.
All right. Good afternoon. I'll start at the top. Some of you have heard a lot about this. Some of you have heard nothing about this. So I'll just start at the beginning. In 2021, State Act 74 was passed, which requires all school buildings built or significantly. Is that better? Thank you. All right. Is that better? Oh. So Act 74, any school building built or significantly renovated before 1980 had to be tested for the presence of PCBs in the air. Originally, the intent of that bill was obviously safety for students, faculty, staff, and the community that uses the buildings. In practice, the intent was that a couple of state agencies were tasked with implementing that testing, and the state was going to cover the costs of testing and abatement. Fast forward a few years, and here we are. With that as background, I'll tell you what we've done and where we stand. We had 3 buildings that were identified as the state as requiring testing: White River Elementary, the middle school, and the high school. We started with the middle school because that's where they told us to start. The process is an environmental consultant that at that time was hired by the state comes in and does a survey of the building and looks for suspect materials. Any building materials that would have been used in construction that are known or suspected to contain this compound. After that, based on the location of those suspect materials, they come in and do air samples. If those air samples reveal the presence of PCBs at a level of concern, then action is required of some sort of remediation and or abatement is required. At the middle school, we did the air samples and we had no issues, no concentrations that rose to either of the 2 levels, either the immediate action level, which says, get out, don't use it, or the school action level, which means you need to get rid of this stuff and have a plan. We didn't have that at the middle school. We had some baseline readings, and frankly, in this, sadly, we might get those in the parking lot considering how ubiquitous this stuff is. So we have no issues there according to the state. We moved on. Air sampling we did the survey at White River and at the high school. Air sampling for White River was scheduled for last summer. The state delayed that air sampling for a variety of reasons, ultimately delayed it for at least a year because of funding. Given the age of the building, the population, and the inventory of suspected materials, we're going to go ahead and do that air sampling anyway, faster than the state can get to it because we need to know what's going on. We'll take whatever actions are required. At the high school, we did the survey, we did the air sampling, and we found in some areas we exceeded the immediate action level. So for instance, the culinary arts program had to move off-site. The concentrations in the air were deemed a hazard. And, some of you have probably heard me talk about the difference between a risk and a hazard. It's a risk driving your car. It's a hazard not wearing your seatbelt. So in that case, we had to mitigate a hazard, which means we moved everybody out. That happened with culinary arts. The only spaces that happened in culinary arts, the health sciences classrooms and the custodial office that we just vacated. And that's an issue of equal importance and in some ways greater magnitude. Elsewhere in the building, we've had what is called the school action level, which means you have measurements in the air that it's a risk. You can continue to use the space, but you need to make a plan to deal with this material. That is, that's extensive. That includes all of the northeast corner of the building, those areas I just discussed, as well as the cafeteria and the auditorium, down through the lobby, the entirety of the educational B wing, which is 28 classrooms and associated offices and meeting spaces, as well as this building that we're in right now. So we got those samples and those air samples back, and we had to make some choices about how to proceed. The state required that we do what's called bulk material sampling, which you go back to that inventory, you sample the materials that were identified, and then look at the composition of those materials to determine the source of the contamination in the air. We did that, and we learned through that process that, and this is fairly typical. None of this is unique to Hartford. PCBs were used in materials that you need to maintain elasticity. So paints, caulking, glazing, adhesives, that sort of thing. So in those areas I just discussed, including this room, the paint, the glazing, the expansion joints between the concrete block and the steel posts all have fairly high concentrations of PCBs in them. I mean, the reality is it was in its day a fantastic building material, and it's held up really well, which is why it's still here. At that point, we had a choice to make, and we chose appropriately to do the next level of bulk sampling, which is to test the substrate. So, looking at a block wall, a cinder block wall, CMU wall, you have the paint, you test the paint, and you determine that it has a high concentration. One of the things that is not unique to PCBs, but is distinct in PCB contamination as opposed to the other things we deal like lead and asbestos is, lead, it's an element. It doesn't want to be anything else. Asbestos is a mineral. It doesn't want to be anything else. PCBs, the way I've taken to describing it, it behaves more like a drop of oil on your driveway, right? It's a drop of oil, but in the sun, it seeps in and creates a soft spot. So the next round of sampling we did was intended and resulted in us understanding how much saturation of that contamination had got into the substrate, had gone into the block walls, the finishes, that stuff. And unfortunately, maybe fortunately, we learned that, for instance, in block walls, this contamination in measurable levels, the EPA is a little loose about it. They say 50 nanograms per billion, which is kind of a hard thing to wrap your head around. But we exceeded those levels in excess of an inch into those substrates. So if you look at a cinder block wall in cross section, you can't really remove an inch of that cinder block wall and have a wall. So on Thursday night, we discussed this, and the next steps for me are to, we've already initiated the planning for a next round of sampling, which will determine the maximum extent of this problem. One of the issues that we had where our actions differ from the state's mandate and differ from some of the situations that have happened at other school districts is we've had the opportunity to watch and read the news and talk to people. When you test air, right, take this room, we test the air in this room right now, we're going to get a reading, it's going to say X. If I made everybody go home and closed all the doors and turned off the ventilators and let it sit for a week, we're going to get a reading that says Y. If I sent everybody home, opened the doors, filled it with fans, and blew the air out for a week, we're going to get a different reading altogether. None of those have any bearing on the content or severity of the actual contamination. The material still exists in the wall regardless of what the air samples say. So for instance, if you walk down the hall towards the RRC past the cafeteria, on the right side of that, I might get this wrong, Nelson, so correct me if I get the era wrong. On the right side of that, it's all part of the original building. The right side was renovated at some point and became culinary arts and health sciences and the getaway kitchen. The left side was renovated more recently and became the RRC. The reason I use this example is I can tell you exactly why we got these readings. When I started here, we had a problem with the heat in the RRC where the units were just too loud for that particular student population. They couldn't learn with the noise those units made. So the way we dealt with this was we turned those units off, turned the units on the rooftop up as high as they would go, and just ventilated the space and pushed hot air through to keep the kids safe without the noise so they could continue their learning and activities. So in those two spaces, on one side of the hall, we had an immediate action level in the air that says, get out of there, do something quickly. On the other side of the hall, everything else is the same, but because we were ventilating, we didn't have a problem. So there was no hazard there. However, it's the same material. It's the same problem. It's the same liability. And one of the things that we've talked about as we've confronted this is not to proceed in a way that just kicks that can down the road. We don't want to leave a liability or a hazard behind for whoever sits in my chair in 10 years to find during a subsequent renovation. So our next round of bulk sampling will address those areas that are of the same construction type, age, and have the same materials so that we can basically make a map of the school and say, here's where all this stuff is, here's what we have to get rid of. Concurrent with that activity, and this is, this mandate was given by the board on Thursday, so I can't report a great deal of progress, but I will tell you it's been a great deal of thought, is what type of abatement do we do? If you think about a space where the substrate is contaminated up to an inch, a cinder block wall, abatement means the cinder block wall goes away. And that's an enormous impact on our building. One of the, a couple of the advantages that we have, one is, I think, for a variety of reasons, that, the state funding isn't what it used to be. So the resources they're applying aren't what they used to be. So in kind of a backhanded way, we've gotten a little bit more control over our process, which is work that we don't necessarily need, but it's probably good that we're doing it. So we're making these choices to capture the entirety of the problem. The other thing we have that's a benefit is this entire building is a steel frame building. You've all probably seen the news where in Burlington they had to tear the whole building down. That was cast in place concrete. So if they had cast in place concrete with the same substrate contamination that we do, they don't have a building anymore. You can look at this building and you can see there's steel posts and steel. It's a steel building. So we are in better shape than anybody who's dealt with this yet, in that we still have a structure. I'm doing my best to point out the positives here. So my task has become to very quickly figure out both the appropriate abatement processes and scheduling and phasing to get rid of these toxins, and in a concurrent swim lane, working, really listening to the folks in the high school about what they need to do to maintain the student experience here, to support educational and coeducational programs, which is in some ways a heavier lift. I deal with the blocks and the bricks and the sticks, and they deal with the people, which is really the more critical task. So we have some time constraints. Students are planning their educational trajectory for the next year, 2, 3, 4+ years. We have, tuition students who are looking at our programs and facilities. And, I'm very conscious of the current state of construction costs and availability of the resources to pull this off. I probably should have said this at the beginning, but it goes through my head over and over and over. From the first time we became aware of this problem, in a very kind of philosophical way when the state said you'll have to do this, and we're like, okay, it's another mandated activity. But the three things that we really have focused on then and have stayed focused on is, one is, of course, making sure the buildings are safe, that we don't have a hazard for the students, faculty, staff, or anybody using the facilities. That's the primary concern. Of equal concern is to, as I said, support the educational and co-curricular programs in the schools and the student experience. And then finally, as we work through this, both as a abatement and construction activity, and also as we do whatever we have to do to facilitate learning through this period, to do that in a way that is in keeping with industry best practices, regulatory compliance, and exercises appropriate stewardship of whatever funds we have to expend to accomplish this. So those are kind of the overarching rules that I keep referring back to when the picture gets too big. You just go back to those three things and the path becomes clearer. So that's the summary with no notes.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Anybody else from the board wish to speak about that? Okay. Yep.
Just one other quick comment. With the suggestion of one of our fellow community members, and not that we wouldn't anyways, but Colin came up with some pretty good suggestions that are going to be added, to our delivery of information to the community. We will be utilizing, as many communication entities as possible. Social media, the school's social media systems, the webpage and things of this sort, to keep you as up to date as we can, because as you can see, this is a very fluid situation. The high school is getting ready to do registrations, next week, as well as families and other community members throughout the region planning for, coming to our district. So it's important to the whole Hartford community to be aware of where we are, and we will do our best to inform all of you with those results as they continue to move forward. So thank you all.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, we are on Article 4 of the school district town meeting agenda, which is to do any other necessary and proper non-binding business. Is there anything else to come before the citizenry today? We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Yes, sir. Tell me your name. Kevin? Oh, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. Yep. Okay. Motion from Peter, second from Jeremy to adjourn. This is a non-debatable motion under Robert's rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned, and we will see you on Tuesday at the